In early 2021, the capital city of Nairobi was classified as the dirtiest city in Kenya, with the US Air Quality Index reading of 73. With a figure such as this, the air quality can be classified as moderate, according to recommendations by the World Health Organization. To that end, innovators partnered with county governments to deploy devices that could warn and monitor air quality.
Consumers of this data are mostly researchers and government entities. Research informs policy. And so both these parties need data. You cannot treat what you do not know.
Companies like Air Quality Systems say different devices can be deployed around the city depending on several parameters.
In terms of air quality monitors, we have from the most simplistic ones, the most basic ones, to now the most complex and most regulated gadgets.
Air quality testing is achieved using various devices, such as a passive sampler like this one, that work using the principle of diffusion, using a diffusion tube that is placed into a protective shelter to collect data by analyzing different gases. Another air monitor is a U-Pass sampler, which can be worn and is 99% accurate as a reference station. The other is a low-cost sensor, which is also fairly accurate and can be deployed in numbers. It has also sensors that collect data through its breathers, which are then analyzed and corrected on the computer. This notwithstanding, players in the sector, however, now say there has to be adequate sensitization on air quality for air quality monitoring to be enhanced across the country.
For awareness and culture, that has been a huge stumbling block, because you have to, this thing is harming you, and they can't really feel it or smell it. A lot of education has to be done, and public awareness campaigns.
Let me explain this because it's interesting. Have you ever wondered where the smoking bans come from? Factories releasing CO2 into the air, or vehicles giving black smoke, and even the smoking ban from cigarettes. These policy directions come from data research that come from these particular devices. These air quality monitors inform the research that then brings out the policy directions that give these bans. Alan Nauko, take one.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for staying with KBC Channel 1. It is time for BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum, and Lensa Odingo there is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. In the first hour of the program, we would like to discuss matters investment and how the African investment landscape is, and how you can access investment options across Africa, taking advantage of both the local, continental and international markets. And to have this conversation with me in studio is Radhika Bachu. She is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder at Ndovu Wealth Limited. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. Just give us a context of where we are in terms of investments in the African landscape.
Yeah, so I think the investment market actually, especially speaking about Kenya, is actually quite nascent. We started the Nairobi Securities Exchange in 2000, so it's only really been around for 26 years, but it has made significant progress over time. So we, if you look at the rate at which Kenyans are investing, historically, it was only not long ago, where only 40% of us were banked, and today 2% of us actually invest in capital markets. So we still have a very long way to go. And the market has grown significantly. We now have instruments such as unit trusts, which are collective schemes where you can take your money, invest it, and it's managed by a professional. We also have infrastructure bonds that everyone's really familiar with, especially the infrastructure bonds where the government uses to raise money to build roads and dams and things like that. And just generally as a market, we have a long way to go, but companies like Ndovu are helping us bridge the gap between the everyday consumer looking to invest and grow their wealth responsibly.
2% is a very small number. And I would like to hear from you what challenges Kenyans and Africans face in accessing these investment options. Is it a case of not knowing that they exist, or affordability? What is the challenge?
So I think the first challenge is financial literacy. So we are not taught how to manage money at school. So typically the average Kenyan and actually an average global individual will go to university, study, but they don't know how to manage money. So financial literacy is not just a problem amongst African countries, it's a global problem. And there's a lot of work being doing to improve that, but actually when you first come into the workplace, you know, you're taught how to make money, but you're not taught how to manage it. So the first step is being unaware and not knowing that if you were to make smarter decisions with your money today, you can actually grow it and it can become an additional revenue stream. Secondly is that actually if you look at the African continent, we're 54 countries. That means there's 54 different regulators. So if you are an African, today you can't sit in Kenya and access the Rwandan market. You can't sit in Uganda and access the Kenyan market. It's actually very difficult. Yet if we were to do that and make it easy for Africans sitting in the 54 countries to be able to invest in other countries, we could drive significant economic development, because essentially what is the capital markets? It allows retail investors to participate in owning companies. So let's take an example like Safaricom. You could invest in Safaricom, you do use it daily as a line or broadband, but you then become an owner rather than just consuming the product. And the challenge is that there's not enough information around the mindset change of we should be, yes, consuming these products, but we should also become owners. And so when you are looking to invest cross-country or within even your local markets, you have to deal with different types of regulators, which makes it really difficult for the average African who is so busy, you know, trying to make a living and doesn't necessarily have the right tools and skill sets to do that. And I think we're changing that. I think in 2050, there will be change where we will be easily able to, sitting in Kenya, invest in South Africa, invest in Botswana, Namibia, in their capital markets. And it's going to take time and technology to help us do that. But there is growth because we do see the average consumer on Ndovu becoming a lot more smarter in the way they manage their money, and that's heavily enabled by technology.
Right. I like that you've brought up the issue of technology. I mean, with the 54 regulators and the 54 different markets that are there, it might be a challenge, but it is also an opportunity for an investor. Sitting in the investment space, what would be something that you would like to see from the regulatory perspective across the continent so that we have a more harmonized regulatory environment and so that Africans can access more of these investment options? Yeah,
so to give hats off to the regulators, they are doing the right work. So let's take East Africa. We have the Capital Markets Authority of Kenya, which manages capital markets. And they work very closely together with the East African countries to be able to passport regulations that have been set in Kenya to other neighboring countries, allowing companies like ourselves to actually be able to passport our existing license to another market. So typically the way it works today is if you have a license in Kenya as a fund manager, the steps to get a license in the neighboring countries has been reduced significantly. And so they are working in those ways. But yes, the governments more generally do have to work more collaboratively to make sure when you're setting the regulatory requirements of individuals investing in capital markets, they leverage the same frameworks and the same policy so that it makes it easier for us to transport somebody being able to invest in Rwanda from Kenya. And actually at Ndovu, our vision is Pan-African. We are looking to be in majority of the countries, and of course that will be heavily dependent on how regulation plays out and the ease of us being able to access capital markets. So we're doing that work there, and we would love to see a united Africa where we can easily invest, allowing us to participate in growth in neighboring countries and driving really strong economic growth across the continent.
The capital markets investments have really grown in Kenya over the past, say, 5 years. Yes. It's like it has just ballooned. Assets under management for some companies are growing like 1,500% in a year, you know. So there is growth and there is interest there. What is it looking like in the next 5 to 10 years? How is that market supposed to look like?
So actually, the asset management industry in terms of unit trusts in Kenya, that's predominantly money market funds, special funds, fixed income bonds, was actually close to 1 billion, so 700 billion shillings at the end of December. And it's expected to grow to 1 trillion shillings in the middle of 2026. That is significant growth. Betty, exactly like you said, there's been significant growth in this market, and we expect this market to continue growing. Companies like ourselves have enabled that growth as well. We're making it accessible for the everyday individual to be able to invest, monitor their portfolio, seek financial advice, and grow their wealth responsibly. And I think that the fact that there are a lot of companies that are now using technology to enable movement of funds, making payments easier, improving the account verification process, making it digital. Because historically, the reason why capital markets took so long to kick off was, Betty, if you wanted to invest, you would have to walk down to the fund manager. You would have to tell them, hey, I'd like to open an account. And they would take your documentation, and it would take on average 2 weeks to get your account open. Now, with players like ourselves, you can do your account verification within a minute. And it takes out that burden. And if you just imagine the everyday Kenyan now who is so busy, that time saving is making it a lot easier for them. It's reducing friction. And because of that now, secondly, of course, there's social media. So there's a lot of information being passed around. Constantly, we're listening to what Trump is doing in the US. We're listening to what's happening in Europe, with war going on, and people are becoming a lot more aware of global markets. But if you pull Africans back, we're actually global citizens. We may earn in our local currencies, but we purchase in in dollars. Any phone, any laptop, you're purchasing in dollars. And so as a consumer, we're very sophisticated compared to the rest of the world. We know exactly which companies are there. And social media has made it even more interesting for the everyday youth. The average age in Kenya is 19. The everyday youth to really think about, oh, okay, if I can own a Samsung, can I actually become an owner? And as a result of that, we're becoming more sophisticated. Companies like us are providing easy infrastructure for you to get started. And therefore, there's been a significant growth in this market, and it will continue to grow. And I'm really excited about this space.
Right. You mentioned the issue of financial literacy being a very big challenge in these investment markets. And saying that we are not taught how to handle money from when we are in school. So we come, we get our jobs, oh, we have money. What do? We pay rent and all that, and then what do we do with the rest of the money? So in terms of financial literacy, I'd like you to speak to a Kenyan who is listening and just tell them the steps to treating money right, simple steps to treating money right.
Yeah, I think, Betty, you're absolutely right. So we, as an ecosystem, have tried to educate a lot of individuals. And if I was coming into a job today, or if I'm working and it's been 3-4 years, you need to think of yourself as a business. And the first thing I would do is say, okay, I am an individual that has values and skills, and I am going to trade my skills or values or start a business in order to create income. And the goal is that even as an individual, I should be looking to increase my income every single year. And once you start moving yourself into that mindset, you actually start thinking of alternate ways to do this. So I'll give you a great example. A lot of our youth are working online digitally in order to make a living. So they're a digital economy, they're either influencers, they're developers as well, who actually export their skill set to companies in the US that are willing to pay lots of money. So the first step is to say, okay, I've got this great education, I've got this skill set, how do I turn it into value? Once you've done that, you have started earning an income. And the first thing you need to do is pay yourself. So the rule of thumb is that you should pay yourself at least 20 to 35%, which means you should save and invest it. Historically, a lot of us would save it, but actually the key differentiator and a really small change is that you need to invest the money. And the way that I would think about it is to say, okay, if I have 250,000 shillings, as an example, I'm starting off, I first need to build my emergency fund. Because you only lose in investments when you don't have a liquid fund that you can draw upon when an emergency happens. And Betty, trust me, emergencies happen. Right? So the idea is that if I can have at least 5% of my wealth in an emergency fund that sits well in a money market fund, then you are okay to invest the 95% of it, because you know that in an event you can draw the money down. Now, the way I would think about investing the 95% of that is actually by building a diversified portfolio which has access to US markets, our emerging markets, as well as commodities, and eventually real estate. Now, if you look in Kenya, we have a significant oversupply of apartments. So do I think, from my professional opinion, that it's a great time to buy real estate? Because of the oversupply, if you don't need that wealth for a long period of time, you can probably buy something a lot cheaper, but is it going to be easily be put on rent? Will you be generating an income? So I do see value for real estate in your portfolio if you have patient capital, but if you're just getting started, you're actually better off investing in a unit trust, like a special fund. So Dovu's launching a special fund very soon, so you'll hear about that in the news. And what that does is, a special fund simply is a multi-asset fund that is has different types of asset classes in it, so bonds, equities, and cash-like instruments, but it's managed by a professional.
Right.
So you, as the very busy individual, doesn't have to monitor it. But the beauty about Ndovu is that you actually get transparency. And the reason we designed a product like that is because transparency is key to the way you as an individual look and treat your money. So if you can see your money grow month on month by 6 or 5%, 5 to 6%, your mindset changes. You're like, okay, so I have invested 250K in a in a special fund. It's actually grown. I'm going to change my spending behaviors. So just a rule of thumb when it comes to spending, you should not be spending more than 30% of your income on utilities, rent, getting to work. And if you are, you need to downsize. And a lot of people don't like it when I say it. I get a lot of social media scrutiny sometimes saying, are you saying, it's hilarious, you can read the comments. But the idea is the short-term sacrifice can get you along the way. So in a nutshell, what you need to do is think of yourself as a business. You should be constantly thinking about how to increase your revenues, but you must pay yourself first. So the goal is to pay 20 to 30%. And over time, I'll give you a very simple example, is that if you had 100,000 shillings in a money market fund, over 10 years, if you did nothing, that 100,000 shillings would be 500,000 shillings. But if you put that same 100,000 shillings in a bank account because you think you're saving, it is actually you're leaving 500,000 shillings on the table. Because we have complex things such as inflation that erodes away. And the biggest hindrance for the everyday African to start investing is they feel scared and they don't know how to get started. And actually it's a lot simpler. And my advice always is start small and get to a financial advisor. You can speak to, we have plenty of them at Ndovu, and we do it absolutely free because we want to educate people on how to start, how they should think about making money, so that eventually in the long term they have a retirement plan, because let's face it, Kenya does not have a social program. And your portfolio is your retirement, but also be able to show their children how they should be dealing with money over time. And then lastly, of course, it supplements your lifestyle. So you can enjoy going to work, doing the things that you want to, rather than having to chase a paycheck.
Right. I would like us to debunk a myth, so to say. A lot of people, when they think investments, they're like, I have to get some piece of land. I have to now build, you know, my house. It's not even for rental income. So if you're, as you said, if someone does not have patient capital, how should they look at, say, the 1 million that they have? Yeah. So actually, when I do some financial advices, depending on your age and of course how much wealth you have, sometimes somebody will say, yes, I have 1 million shillings and I want to buy land. And the first reaction I have is that's a bad investment, because land doesn't generate income. In fact, what you're better off doing is actually investing the 1 million shilling in a special fund or global markets, and continue growing that to a point where you have enough capital to buy already, either build a house, because I believe you should have the privilege of building the house. If you work really hard, you do want to build a beautiful property, but it comes at a later sequence in your life. So if you're starting off with 1 million shillings, we as Kenyans have been taught buy land, buy land, buy land. Majority of us do have a lot of land in areas where it's not appreciating. And when you need it as an emergency, you can't sell it, and you're selling at a discount. And so actually, if I had 1 million shillings today, I would put it in a money market fund or a special fund, so that it can continue growing. And just to give you some examples, money market funds last year delivered anywhere from 8 to 11%.
and special funds delivered anywhere between 20 and above on the Kenya shilling. And I think that's a great investment because you're using the little capital you have to generate more income so it can grow faster because of this thing called compounding. And then at a later stage in your life where you're still accumulating wealth and you're still investing, you can then carve out a time to actually build your place. But in the initial, I would invest it so it can grow over time.
Growing money is very important.
Yes.
And how does someone who, is there little income that cannot be saved or invested?
It's a myth. You can invest as little as you like. And I think there's a lot of companies like ourselves. So we are positioned to serve middle income and higher. So our special fund has a minimum of 250,000 shillings, but we have products on the platform that can serve various people. So you can actually access the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies listed on the US exchange. The S&P 500 last year generated on average 15% on the dollar. And on Ndovu, you can actually access it with just as little as 5,000 shillings. Now, of course, the reason we did that was we do have an impact. We want to educate the youth and help them get on the ladder. And there's a famous saying, you can't learn how to swim by reading a book. You need to get into the water.
Yep.
So that's the idea behind it. But if you want to see meaningful growth, I always recommend if you're starting for the first time, start with 250,000 shillings. But having said that, you can start lower. And a lot of our clients and the experience we've seen is that people do start slowly, they're consistent, and after that they're like, oh, wow, my money sitting in a bank is earning 2%, and now my money here is earning 15% on the dollar. It's a game changer. And I do believe, because of the nature of social media, everybody wants instant gratification, but investing is such a thing that you get the gratification with patience. And having that patience is very important as an investor. And just general, advice to the younger individuals is that Rome wasn't built in a day, and you have to put in good behaviors today. So invest consistently, and there are tools that allow you to do it, like Ndovu Wealth, so you have no excuse. So if you have any spare change, or you've done a side gig and you've got some cash, download the app, start investing, and you'll start seeing how money grows. And actually, if you are young and you're in your 20s, that's the time for you to explore and figure out what you're good at so you can start building multiple revenue streams. But by the time you're 30, you should have invested. And if you can invest earlier, the better it is for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned the issue of consistency, because the people who say that, oh, I earn too little, I can't invest, they say that the way you'll treat 20,000 today and the day you get 1 million shillings, you'll probably treat it the same. Yeah,
Correct.
Because of your mindset. It's a mindset problem.
Yeah.
So as you say, the industry, people such as yourselves and Ndovu, working towards changing that mindset.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us about having a diversified portfolio. What does a diversified portfolio look like?
Yeah,
and
so
how does one achieve that? Sorry.
Yeah. So just to go one step before that, actually you make a really good point.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. We, with our research, have noticed people eat out a lot in Kenya. Right? And the largest actually expenditure, so we luckily don't have a smoking culture. We have a drinking culture, but actually we have a big eating out culture. And you will see if you had 20,000 shillings, let's say your salary is 40K and you're spending 10K of it on takeout, that's a bad sign. So yes, you need to make some changes. You need to eat well and I'm not saying don't eat out, but limit the number of times, because you could use that 5,000 shillings that you save every week to actually invest, and that will compound over time and be meaningful. And the other thing I would say is that a lot of people don't invest because they're scared about volatility and risk. They think they can lose their money. And yes, investments do have risks, but if you choose a provider you trust and somebody that is regulated and has an investment strategy of creating wealth over time, you having your money under the mattress is a guaranteed loss, because every year you're losing 8% because of inflation. And so actually the biggest loss, I say, is inaction, because the money sitting in a bank or you're under your mattress is actually losing money, and you've worked really hard to earn that money that you should be investing. So investing, in my mind, is a no-brainer. Now the big question comes around, how do we build a diversified portfolio? So I'll talk a little bit about what's happening in the US markets, just to understand how to build a portfolio today.
Right.
So we're living in very uncertain times, Betty. So we have, as you've seen on national news, international news, Trump is trying to throw his weight around in order to drive policy, and rightfully so, because he has the best intentions for the US. But we, as emerging markets, are pegged to the dollar. So a lot of our trade is done in US dollars. We as Kenya are a large manufacturing economy. We import a lot of our raw materials, and then we export significant of that to create, so add value, and then we export it to create revenue. And so all the industries that we are in actually are highly impacted. And even if you're not in manufacturing, just being a sole consumer who is using technology today, when the dollar weakens, we find the laptop that we buy a lot cheaper, but when the dollar strengthens, we're paying more Kenya shillings for that particular laptop. So as a result of us being global citizens, but living and earning Kenya shillings, we must hold some US dollar exposure in our portfolio. And then of course, so what would that look like today is that if I was building a portfolio, I would have 60% of my wealth in dollar-denominated investments. But today, so when I say dollar-denominated investments, it doesn't just mean equities. So you can hold gold, silver, copper in dollars. And given the noise that is being created by the war that might be on the horizon, the US-China trade tariffs, and now he's threatening Europe and other neighboring countries to participate and support him, it means that the US dollar could weaken. And the best thing you can do in this market, when that's happening in global markets, is actually to diversify into other investments. And lucky for us, we're in Kenya, where we are an emerging market. We can get access to fixed income bonds in Kenya shillings. We can also invest in money market funds, and we can also start businesses, etc., as a whole, in order to be able to balance our portfolio. So today, if you had asked me this question a year ago, my strategy would have been very different.
Okay.
But because of what's happening in the market today, I would say you should have 60% in dollars and 30%, because I do believe, I know gold is at an all-time high, but because of this uncertainty, I have a strong conviction, and so does Dobu as an investment team, that gold, silver, and commodity and copper and other raw or precious metals will increase in value. So actually you can get access to that. So the big question is, where do I get access to these precious metals? And actually, if you download the Ndovu app, you get access to commodities, and they're held in dollars. And then I would also invest in other markets, such as holding in same dollars. So India, for example, the S&P 500 with the US market. The US is too big to fail, in my opinion, so it's nice to have an allocation. And then for my 40%, I would look to invest in money market funds and then fixed income bonds in Kenya, and even the NSE. Because last 2 years, the NSE has delivered double-digit returns, and it's continuously growing. I'm really excited for another listing that is happening. I think it shows growth in the market as well. And of course, because we are consuming Safaricom, BAT, the banks, we use them, it's good to also have ownership in them. So you're actually earning as a result of consuming them.
You talked about volatility and risk. And as you said, people are scared of losing their money. I mean, we have seen people lose money.
Yes.
Yeah. So how does an investor identify the, let's call it, safe option to invest in?
Yeah, so I think there's some red flags and some green flags. So first of all, I'll start with the green flag. Well, let's start with the red flags.
Right.
And it's amazing because we're both wearing red and green. So firstly, the red flag is, if it's too good to be true, it is. Nobody needs to be educated enough. Nobody needs an additional level of education to know that. And when we speak to our customers, a lot of people, our clients will say to us that, I invested in this, they said they were going to give me 60% return this year, and it turned out to be a scam. And I said, yeah, because it's too good to be true.
Right.
I think if you, as an average individual, is looking to invest, a good return is anywhere between, on the dollar, 12 to 14 to 16%, and markets have done a lot better than that. That's great. But if someone's promising you 60% return, it's too good to be true. The second thing is them not having a regulatory license. So I think the first question you can ask a fund manager or an investment party, what regulation do you have? And majority of the investment regulations fall under the Capital Markets Authority of Kenya. You can actually log online, you can search. They have a section where it says licensed players, and you can actually search for them. Do your homework, of course, you have to do your due diligence. And then thirdly, I would say is ask them, where does your money sit? So if I was to give you 250,000 shillings, what happens within your ecosystem when you invest it? Does the money sit under my name under a custody account? When you're regulated, the industry standard is for you to have a custodian that cannot send money to a company's operational accounts.
Okay.
And that is how you know that should anything happen to the fund manager, your assets are secure because they sit with a third party who's a trustee and looks after your interests. And so if anything happens to a company, your assets are still invested. And that's a really, really important question to ask. And of course, if they are transparent in fees and they're easily accessible, you can speak to them. These are all good signs in terms of making sure that your money is not lost, but on a fundamental level. Now, when it comes to investing, investing is a risk. But the most important thing to think about is that am I taking a well-calculated, responsible risk versus just taking a risk? And when it comes to capital markets, history has showed us that if you were to remain invested over time, the best thing about investing is time in the market, that your money will always grow. Yes, the market will go up and down. That is a function of a market. So, when you invest, the idea of a market is the stock market will come up and down because all these companies are doing different things to generate revenue, and that's okay. But as long as you're consistent and you're a long-term investor, history has shown that the returns have always gone up. So if you've been investing responsibly over time, which is looking at passive funds such as the S&P 500 or a special fund, etc., the portfolio manager will do the work for you. And yes, there may be some moments of down, but don't panic. That's part of the market. It needs to come down in order for it to grow. And so the key message here is that it's not about timing the market and taking bets with your money. The best way to moderate the risk and the volatility is to spend time in the market. And my famous saying I like to say is that when the market comes down, just think of it as a sale. So your best shoes are on sale. We always rush to buy our best shoes, right? So put some money into the market and it will recover over time.
Right. And so the work of the regulators in terms of building trust in the market. I think CMA, as you said, and the other regulators have done a really good job. I'd like you to speak to that as an investor, as an investment firm that is operating in this market and the other African markets that you're in.
Yeah, so I think let's look at the history. We've only been around for 26 years as capital markets, and the CMA and the CBK have evolved significantly over time, and that is really important because they have been at the forefront of learning and educating themselves in order to understand what have other markets done, how do they regulate these operators. And yes, mistakes do happen, but they've been very quick to resolve and move across that in order to make sure that they're able to regulate these financial companies. And you can see that in the growth in the unit trust market. We've seen significant growth every single year as a result of them doing a good job in regulating the companies around. The other thing I'd like to mention is I'm sure a lot of us, because of social media news, have heard about Web3, blockchain, and crypto. So interesting fact, crypto is, Kenya is Kenya is the number 3 country globally that trades crypto significantly. And crypto is, for those of you who don't know, is a token that holds value, so Bitcoin, etc., that holds value, is seen as an investment class and is quite a high-risk investment class, and it's built on blockchain. And recently, Kenya, with the changing environment, quickly put together a virtual assets provider bill, which goes to show the speed at which they're working to really help us move in a way that we as Kenya don't remain behind while the global economies are adopting blockchain and Bitcoin and such. So yeah, in a nutshell, our experience has been very positive with the CMA and the CBK, and they do move fast. And what I love about them, they're constantly learning, which is the right way to approach regulation.
And is there more that you think that can be done?
Yes, 100%. I think in terms of regulating capital markets and moving a little and moving a little bit faster and being able to, let me start again. So I feel that the CMA is moving at a pace that's very fast. However, the world is changing at a much faster rate. So for example, with AI, there are now AI tools that can predict markets for you. And so they need to be at the forefront to say, okay, how does this impact the Nairobi Securities Exchange? Do we have an AI bot that can trade and generate superior returns that may be an unfair advantage to someone who has access to AI? The second thing is now social media influencers have a significant, and this is a global problem, the way markets are meant to behave fundamentally with changes in policy, the markets don't do that anymore. And the reason is because there's so much information that moves between countries. And I'll give you an example whereby earlier this year you expected when US was saying that he wants to put, well, Trump was saying that he'd like to put trade tariffs on China, the market sold off, but it recovered very quickly. Historically, that recovery would have taken 18 months. And the reason it recovered very quickly is because you now have influencers like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, who have so much influence that when they tweet something, people actually follow them. And so fundamentally, the way I see it is that our old macros that would tell us how the market is going to move, so pundits could predict what to do with investments, is changing because now we have external factors that are influencing the changing of market. And that eventually will come to Kenya. And it's actually a really scary thought because let's say you've taken 20 years to build a company, you've listed it, and you have such a powerful source that says, oh, this company is not worth anything, and your share price collapses. There has to be some change in ownership in who is allowed to say what about the public market to avoid insider trading. And so like that, I think there's a lot of work to be done in this market because markets can be now manipulated by external factors, which historically didn't happen. But that change will happen across global markets, I believe.
Right, so it's not just something domiciled on the African continent.
Not at all, yeah. Okay,
so as investors are looking to invest, is it just a matter of returns that they should be looking for? You know, is it the one who is promising the highest returns, you know, that delivers?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to, we as humans are innately return driven.
Right.
Right, and we would like to, you know, life is hard, you want your money to grow as quickly as possible. Returns are important, but I do think the key to generating strong returns over a long period of time is diversification and holding a balanced portfolio. And the reason diversification is important is because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. So let's say you hold fixed income bonds and equities. At a moment where equities are selling off, your fixed income bonds are guaranteed. And of course, you could make a lot more money having all your money in equities, but there's a lot of risk. So I think the balance around looking for better returns is, as an individual, you need to understand what are your financial goals and then build your portfolios around that. So if you're looking to pay for your children's education when you're going to university and your child is 2 years old, as an example, you have 18 years or 16 years to go before they go to university. Actually, that portfolio can run significantly more risk, therefore generate more return. And that is a portfolio you can run a little bit more growth in. But if you are 55 coming to retire at 60 and you have the only income or assets you have in a portfolio, then you want to have 80% in money market and capital preservation. So I think when you think about how to generate portfolio returns and what's right for you, it should be done based on what are your financial goals.
Right. So as someone is thinking about now beginning investing, what is the one thing that you can tell them that they need to either look out for or be sure about before they put their money somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's about speaking to the individual or the company that you're dealing with, doing your research to understand, are they regulated? And are they doing what they say on the tin? When you speak to an RM or the company, are they saying what they do on the tin? And are they transparent? I think those are the three things. And if something doesn't sit right with you, don't go with that company. Like, it's that simple. Humans are a lot more intuitively very smart, and if something doesn't feel right, there's probably something that's not right. So if I was a first-time investor, I would do my homework, look at regulation, But the last thing I will say, you need to get started, because the opportunity cost of you not getting started is a lot higher than you starting and getting your hands burnt a little and learning along the way versus doing nothing.
So we all need to get started, no matter how much we have. Remember, we are having this conversation with Radhika Bachu. She is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Ndovu Wealth Limited, and we are talking about accessing investment options in Africa and beyond. You can invest with as low as 500 shillings, go as high as you want, but just get started. We want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, this conversation continues. Do stay with BizCheck.
Kila Jumamosi saa 1 jioni kuna sauti mbili zinazotawala anga ya habari. Dada wawili pacha, magwiji wa ulingo wa habari.
Karibu sana katika Dira ya Magwiji.
Magwiji kwa upekee wa sauti, mtindo na maarifa.
Katika enzi ya sasa iliyosheheni mabadiliko, tuko ange kukuletea taarifa, fafanuzi kutoka kila pembe ya dunia.
Jamila na Wanjiru wanakupeleka kwenye safari ya taarifa, uchambuzi na uhodari wa matukio yanayotikisa dunia.
Tunajizatiti kukupa taarifa sahihi na kwa wakati.
Habari kwa jicho la kitaalam.
Tuna hamu na hamamu katika kuuliza maswali stahiki yenye kuwajibisha.
Na sauti ya uhalisia.
Tupe sikio na macho kwa taarifa za kina.
Dira ya Magwiji, pacha wa habari. Kila Jumamosi saa 1 jioni hapa KBC Channel 1.
Kauko na mimi hi-fi. Kauko na mimi hi-fi. Kauko na mimi
How do you heal? How do you move on, whether it's in relationships, whether it's with family, with friends?
So when I hear about healing, one, I believe it's all about clarity and stability when you're making your decisions.
Loving is not a feeling. It is an action. It is to give that love that is required. And so that is why I believe you cannot at all. You can't keep love that person and you're still healing.
I put my hope in you. For you are the lifter of my head.
This is a conversation about changing systems, rebuilding dignity, and of course, proving that there definitely is life beyond the bars.
Shock on me. This officer says to me, I'm actually here to arrest you. From that point on, the wrongful prosecution begins. I am a convicted felon in this country. The friends I had, all the contacts, everyone has disappeared. So reality checks in. And it's a very harsh reality. Poverty does not equate criminality.
Yeah.
So let us change that in this country and see to it that the opposite of justice is not inequality.
Thank you for staying with Channel 1. This is BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum and Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Today we are talking about matters money. How are we treating our money? Where are we investing? And what are the correct investment options? Not correct per se, just what works for us. And this conversation I am having with Radhika Bachu. She is the CEO and co-founder at Ndovu Wealth Limited. We have talked quite a lot, and before we went on break she was saying As long as you have some money, just get started on your investment. Thank you, Radhika, for staying with us. We are in the artificial intelligence age, and virtually every industry is adopting AI. What is the impact of AI in the investments industry? I know there are robo-advisors now, and are they going to phase out, you know, phase? Yeah, so what is the impact of AI in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, so AI is going to have significant impact in not just the financial industry, but across the board. And I know there's a lot of noise on the internet saying that we're going to lose jobs. But I actually think that AI is here to increase productivity and efficiency, allowing you to make more money so that you can then invest over time and get wealthier. And I think especially for the financial industry, AI is so already we use AI at Endover Wealth. We use it to do customer service. And a lot of you might not, when you use the solution, you might not actually feel that it's AI, which is really great because you can see at the length at which it has changed over time. Because if you were using a chatbot message about 7 years ago, you knew it was a pre-populated answer and you knew exactly what it is. But today it actually feels as if you're speaking to a human. And we're in the process of integrating a voice AI that can speak different African languages. How cool is that? But I think when you look at any business, so with the financial industry, we've started with small things such as using AI to increase our great customer service, being able to use it to create social media and content. And so my team is faster and is able to get a lot more productivity out of the work that they're doing, and spending time more on the strategic decisions rather than the menial tasks that you have to do to deliver a project.
Right.
And recently we're also using AI in compliance. So of course, as a regulated business, we have to monitor transactions. We have to make sure that the money that is on our platform meets the AML, so anti-money laundering and policies. So we use AI to really monitor trades on our platform, and it highlights, and then of course the compliance team gets a notification and they then do their double check, which is great because it's reducing the number of people I need to hire, but the quality of the people I'm hiring are more strategic thinkers. But let's now move on to the exciting part, which is using robo-advisors that are AI-driven or financial advisors that are AI-driven. I think we will not be getting rid of financial advisors. There is this human element. You know, when somebody is investing 10 million shillings, they want to speak to someone. They want to speak to someone human. To them, and actually, even if somebody's investing 100,000 shillings, that's a lot of money to some people. Yeah. And they want to speak to somebody because the reality of when it comes to money is it's an emotional thing. You know, it's a trust building exercise. So I don't think we will be getting rid of financial advisors. What will actually happen is that we, as financial advisors today, use AI in order to better our thinking and our strategy and our investment committee decisions. So I'll give you an example. We have an investment committee that sets strategy for every month. And now they use AI to sift through data, but they do sense check it because it can make errors, but it's reduced the rate at which you first have to download raw data, analyze it, draw insights. Instead, now you can do that within 30 minutes. And so it's just making our tasks much faster. And I think what will be really interesting is how does AI pick stocks? So the portfolio management side of it, which is yet to be seen. I've been reading some articles where some people have used this new AI called a Claude bot. I don't know if you've heard about it on social media, to actually put it on an events prediction market called Polymarket in the US, and they gave it $100 and it was able to convert the $100 into $152. And the idea is that right now this AI can actively go and pick events or investments that could generate a lot of money, and that use is going to be significantly interesting. But other than AI, there's a lot of talk about blockchain. Blockchain has already changed the way fund managers and portfolio managers are recording and distributing data internally. So one of the biggest roles as a fund manager is bookkeeping. We need to make sure that if Betty comes onto the platform and she's investing, she's given us her hard-earned money, she invested on this date, it was this much, and typically this sort of work was done on Excel spreadsheets or a software that you buy. And now with blockchain, you can actually record these trades that are immutable, means nobody can go into the chain and change it. So it increases security, it increases trust, and you're able to hold large amounts of data at a very low cost, again, increasing just the cost of, reducing the cost of doing business, but increasing efficiency. And one thing that I'm super excited about is, right now, if you are sitting in Africa and you wanted to, let me reverse the thing. Right now, if you're sitting in the US, you're an African diaspora, you have this infinity to build back, we'll talk about Kenya, but you live in the US because you need to make more money, you've gone abroad, you come and visit Kenya every few years, you actually also have invested in money market funds, but having to send the money from a US bank account to Kenya is really difficult. And it takes 3 days, you have to give paperwork because the US banking system is very strict. And we've had clients who are trying to do this. And the friction there is to actually be able for him to take their personal money and invest it in a property or an investment to build Kenya is really difficult. And actually, the use of blockchain allows you to tokenize real world assets. So we talked about crypto earlier. Crypto is a token. So we can take Kenyan real estate and make it a token and distribute it on blockchain, where you get access to people all around the world without having to apply for multiple regulation, without having to set up shop in different countries. And Ndovu's goal is, in the next year, to tokenize our money market fund, meaning, and this is using the infrastructure called Base. Okay. It's a big company called Coinbase in the US. They already have 8 million users globally on this exchange. And we are tokenizing our money market fund, making it from a real world asset where we're still buying bonds and traditional assets. It's a USD denominated coin. Last year it generated 4% on the dollar. And this year, depending on what we do, it'll have value to it. But now anybody sitting around the world can access it because you can leverage the payment systems, the KYC systems built on blockchain. So I do believe the future of finance is on chain. And what I'm really excited to do is be able to fractionalize, tokenize a real world, like a real estate project, a telecom project that is generating meaningful returns. So bringing private markets to the public markets. And the returns are really healthy. And what that does in turn for Africa is we're now getting liquidity from global markets into this market, and you're generating more economic development, because if you get more liquidity and you have more people investing in countries and back home, you're actually able to generate more economic growth. And it means it creates jobs, it creates projects, and that for me is a game changer. And I do believe blockchain was more so invented for emerging markets like Africa versus the US where banking works. And actually the on-chain activity grew by $200 billion last year. So it goes to show that a lot of our creative content creators are actually using blockchain to be able to receive payment. They're using blockchain to send money to one another. And that digital adoption is increasing at a very fast rate. And we're really excited to tokenize real world assets so we can make them available on a global chain. So in terms of technology, there's a lot of innovation happening. And we're looking to be at the forefront of it.
Right. So financial advisors should breathe easy. They will not
worry.
Right. And from a user's perspective, there are all these solutions that are there. But a lot of people, when they hear AI, the only thing they know is ChatGPT, right? So what is the risk of using, say, open source AI to make financial decisions? You know, why do you need a financial advisor?
Yeah. So I think, a couple of things. We know that AI makes mistakes, but fast forward 3 years, there'll be very little mistakes. And the rate at which it is optimizing and improving is out of this world. But you still need, so AI is data driven. They don't understand the emotional aspects. I truly believe investing is emotional. And this is why I think that actually being able to bring African assets on chain, and we could acquire diasporas to invest back home. They already send $53 billion a year home, but now they can send it with a purpose. And that's because it's emotional. So they're not investing back home because the returns are the best. They're not investing back home because they can easily liquidate their money. They're investing back home because it's emotional. And that AI piece cannot sense that. And so, yes, you can use it as a benchmark. You can put in a few questions, try and understand what's the right portfolio for you, but it's the best thing you can't build is experience. And then speak to a financial advisor and say, well, these are my financial goals. This is what ChatGPT says. What would you do in this situation? So the idea is that AI is an enabler. It's here to increase productivity, but there's some elements that it can't replicate, and that's why everyone should not worry that AI is going to take over their jobs, because there is a need for experience and the emotional intelligence part of looking at money and why they're investing. And I'll give you a great example. You might see somebody who's in their 40s that is still building their wealth and would like to run more risk. But AI will say, okay, well, you're in your 40s, this is your liquidity, I think you should run a balanced portfolio. But this individual is saying, no, I know I have future cash flow or inheritance coming. The cash today I can invest at a high risk. But AI will tell you, well, you don't have that cash, that's a maybe. Your inheritance is a maybe. You don't know if your father's going to leave it to you, as an example, or your mother. And so AI is great, but it's not the answer to everything.
Right, so we need to use it cautiously, so to say.
Yeah.
As we come to a close of the conversation, Radhika, I would like you to tell us a summary of what we've talked about. What should viewers pick up on and what should they action on? And as you mentioned, with the political and geopolitical climate that there is right now, would you put your money in the USD?
Oh, great question. So I'll start with that first. So I think America is too big to fail today, and I still believe in the stock market because globally they export a lot of their technology. We're all consumers of Nike, Apple, Johnson & Johnson. They're a big market to fail. But today, if I had to build my USD portfolio, I would actually put more money in gold, silver, and copper, because we do believe in 2026 that will continue to grow. What has happened is a lot of central banks have moved away from holding dollar reserves to holding gold. That's why now gold is at 5,000 in value. We still think that will continue happening. And I think it would be naive of us to say the US market is going to die. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of social media content and creators who want to catch attention. So they're like, the US market is done. It's not. And so the idea is that we would hold if you came to Ndova, we'd tell you to hold copper, gold, and silver because they're commodities. They behave differently to equities. We'd also recommend holding the S&P 500 or a technology fund or a quantum computing fund. And these funds have generated double-digit returns in the 20s and the 30s on the dollar, net of fees, net of tax. Great products to hold. And then because we're here, I would diversify, not away from holding dollars, but actually holding some local currency or buying India or a different market, as an example. But just to summarize, I think I'll bring it to a close that when investing, understand what your financial goals are, because investing is very personal, but do get started. And today with technology and the amount and how easy it is now to invest, actually not investing is a higher risk because you're losing inflation. And so if you're scared to make that first decision, just think about investing small and then stay consistent and read. And you will learn a lot about investing, and that investing behavior and learnings will translate into your everyday life, making you a human who's grown, and you'll be able to achieve your financial goals much faster.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Get started. Wherever you are, just get started. That is the message from Radhika Bachu. She is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder at Ndova Wealth Limited, speaking to us about where to put our money this year and how to make sure that we are doing it safely and in a responsible manner. And as she said, take note of that. Just get started wherever you are. That is the first conversation on BizCheck this morning. When we come back, we shall be talking about how scientists, researchers worked together to combat maize lethal necrosis disease. Do stay with us.
From the smoky street smocha to the sizzling nyama choma, Kenya is now aggressively marketing its cuisine and lifestyle as part of its tourism experience. You will love it. Exhibitors here say food is no longer just about what's on the plate, but about the authentic Kenyan experience that visitors can take home with them.
I said I want nyama. I love the Kenyan cuisine. I know you have, if I'm not wrong, wet and fried. So I like the wet style, but it's delicious.
Our visit here at the Magical Kenya Travel Expo saw people enjoying a variety of local dishes, with food exhibitors drawing some of the biggest crowds.
It's evolved from just being a street food to an experience that people are coming together to make sure that they have an experience of sausage. What makes Kenya exciting is a breakfast sausage. That's why you see people going to diaspora, they carry the Kenyan sausage.
We do with a lot of barbecue, and also this is a Kenyan thing. People love nyama choma. Nyama choma is part of the lifestyle of Kenyans, and we do a lot of barbecue, we do nice meat, and when people come to Kenya, they really need to try our meat, especially they come to Gecko.
Food out here is awesome, even though I'm a vegetarian, but we really have a lot of good vegetarian options and a proper vegetarian meal. And also the people out here are very good.
The expo itself has attracted more than 8,000 visitors and over 470 exhibitors from 40 countries.
If we have like international clients whom they have come to travel with us, we do have lunch at my house, or sometimes we do an early lunch whereby my wife, she gives them lessons how we cook ugali, how we peel potatoes and make mokimo, until we eat it.
The diversification of the tourism product offering to food, culture, lifestyle and adventure is expected to enhance Kenya's appeal to international travelers and tap into emerging global tourism trends.
We have our mountains, we have hiking trails, we have zip lining, we have all the rafting and kayaking on the Sagana River. We have
Shaba National Reserve spans approximately 250 square kilometers, characterized by rolling hills, acacia woodlands, and the meandering Ewasongiro River. The unique topography creates a striking contrast against the backdrop of the arid plains, offering a picturesque setting that is both serene and dramatic. The river, which serves as the lifeblood of the reserve, attracts wildlife, making it a prime spot for game viewing. Shaba is known for its large populations of elephants, reticulated giraffes and gravy zebras, some of the rarest animals in Africa. Birdwatchers will delight in the rich avifauna with over 300 species recorded, including the striking Somali ostrich and the vibrant violet-breasted roller.
Not just giraffe, reticulated giraffe, Borevis zebra, Somali ostrich, long-necked gazelle or gerenuk, and the oryx, the Isa oryx. So those animals are only found in the northern part of the country.
Beyond its natural beauty, Shaba National Reserve is steeped in cultural significance. The reserve is located near the traditional lands of the Samburu people, a semi-nomadic pastoralist community known for their vibrant customs and colorful attire. Visitors to Shaba have the unique opportunity to engage with the Samburu, learning about their way of life, traditions, and the symbiotic relationship they share with the land and its wildlife. Chuma Odim, Magical Sense.
Well, thank you for staying with Channel 1. We are now in the second hour of the program, and we would like to discuss something about food security. Now, in 2011, a disease called maize lethal necrosis was diagnosed first in Kenya, and it could have spelled doom for the food security of our country that really depends on maize. But there were some very intentional efforts that were taken by institutions and scientists and researchers to ensure that we still have a staple food that we can consume. We'd like to speak with Dr. Suresh Lingadahali Mahabaleshwara. He says I should just call him Dr. Suresh LM. Thank you very much for speaking with us. He is a pathologist at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I hope I did not butcher your name.
No, it's yeah, normally, yeah.
Okay, karibu sana. So before we get into the heavy stuff, just explain to us what maize lethal necrosis disease is.
Yeah, maize lethal necrosis is a disease. Many people often confuse it as a virus.
All right.
Yeah, basically, it is a viral disease, and it is important to know that it is caused by two important viruses. One, the critical virus called maize chlorotic mottle virus, which was introduced during 2011. It was not there in Kenya or in Africa. Another virus called sugarcane mosaic virus, it was there in Africa for last 4 decades. So that single virus, when it came to Kenya, and it has synergistic interaction with the sugarcane mosaic virus. So due to synergistic infection to the maize, it has really affected the crop. Within the month or within 3 weeks of infection, the whole crop will be completely dead, and it has no potential to produce any yield. Especially if the single sugarcane mosaic virus, it is there alone, it is causing diseases, but it is not having much impact. Due to this synergistic or combined infection of two viruses, and it is giving more challenging. Although sugarcane mosaic virus is a part of one family called Partiviridae, there are several other viruses are associated, but this virus is a major to have infection with the maize chlorotic mottle virus. That's how the challenge has started in 2011.
In 2011. Yeah. And when this was detected, what was the risk?
Okay, this virus, particularly maize chlorotic mottle virus, was reported in 2011. And the risk is that, you see, the 100% crop loss, all the leading commercial varieties grown in Kenya and Eastern Africa do not have a native genetic resistance. In that case, this risk is more higher. And why this particular is devastating in Kenya or in Eastern Africa, that is the important question in the room. Because in Africa, it is a tropical weather. And tropical weather make it more conducive for the host and insect vector. There is a dynamics called the host, pathogen, and environment triangle. So the host is there, but there was no virus. And the environment was there conducive. So this particular virus came through seed. The risk is coming through seed trade, seed movement, contaminated seed. So it is well understood that it is lying on the surface in the pedicellin region of the maize seed, so that when it comes to the point of infection, it is lying in the external. So when the first infection was detected in 2011, what happened, the surrounding plants in Bomet area, all the surrounding plots has been started infection because a conducive weather plus insect vector make it more spreading faster and faster. So then it lose the ground and it immediately spread across the whole country. And that time, people were feeling that it could be other challenges like a stress, drought, other challenges. But when it is scientifically understood, validated and confirmed, it is not the drought, it is the viral diseases, and because they have the complete knowledge, it has affected America and other countries, then they know there should be a serious effort has to be done in a coordinated and a concise way with a collaboration with a partner's effort.
And maize is a staple in Kenya
Very
and
much.
in Africa.
Yeah.
300 million people depend on it.
Yeah.
So this ideally would have spelled doom the continent, right?
Yeah.
So what steps were taken? What was done at that point now?
Very important point. As I mentioned, 300 million people are not just depending on the food, but it is a livelihood. It's a staple food, and it is a kind of a, most importantly, it is a food security crisis and seed trade disruptions. You know, people moving the grains, seed is a seed trade disruptions. And when it is coming to the point of hunger, income loss, and seed trade disruption, it is creating a big challenges in the whole continent. So once it is known, and CIMMYT together with the partners, especially all the regional partners, a special thanks to Calro, and special thanks to KFIS and all the other regional partners in Eastern Africa, especially from Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and other Eastern Africa countries who joined hands with CIMMYT, plus other the National Plant Protection Organization in Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Now, the point here that since it has already spread in Eastern Africa very rapidly, within few years, it has completely captured the whole Eastern Africa. The hope is very bleak, very weak. That means everybody in the verge of losing the crops, livelihood, and income. Many smallholder farmers, instead of getting a daily meal, they used to have one meal per 4 days. And people dropping the school, it becomes more challenging. And Dr. Hugo has made a very economic study, almost $185 million loss in Kenya alone. It is quite huge.
Yeah, that's big.
Okay, to come to the point of understanding the agriculture as such, around 2.1 million hectares as on today is growing maize, and which is equally about 3.6 million tons. Okay, the productivity is low because several other diseases are associated, other biostic stresses are there. In addition to other stresses, this particular diseases is completely lethal. Why is lethal? Within 1 month of infection is completely affected. So now, as I mentioned, I come back here that CIMMYT together with all these partners to come together. They thought science, collaborative steps, and a strategic action is necessary to deal with these devastating diseases. What steps is more important here? Most important, of course, developing a resistant variety is the very key because it will not have any damage to the environment, and you can control the diseases naturally. Yeah. The second part is the very important part: early detection and surveillance. Early detection surveillance in all these countries, because we should monitor how corona is spreading around the world. Similarly, in agriculture, MLN is similar an example. We started putting surveillance, smart surveillance, using a simple diagnostic method called immunostrips, and we used a field-based ODK tool to gather the information based on the GPS. And we identified all the vulnerable areas of Kenya and all the neighboring countries and in Southern Africa. That is the second surveillance part. And advanced diagnostics we have used. Yeah? And most important here, it is not that diagnostic is enough. We need to have a clean seed. That is where the most important, because the virus is moving through seed. And imagine Southern Africa, like Zambia, is alone producing almost 40,000 metric tons seeds to the Kenya because of no diseases. And it is producing similar quantities to Tanzania. And if this country alone hit, and whole Africa will be more affected. And not only that one, many seed companies producing seeds in Zambia and Zimbabwe and Malawi. So with these surveillance mechanisms, we could clearly distinguish Southern Africa is clean from MLN and Eastern Africa having MLN challenges. Now, clean seed movement, what it means? CIMMYT, what it really we did together, we have a stringent quarantine procedures. First thing, we have supported Zimbabwe to have a quarantine site to ensure whatever the seed is coming from Kenya, it has been grown there and identified as a clean seed. Before we moved to seeds to Kenya, to Zimbabwe, what we used to do, what we are doing now, we scout in our research fields and test all the seeds. And we have also developed a new seed treatment decontamination technologies, first in the world, that this virus will be removed, it will be decontaminated. So imagine that virus is decontaminated and that is free from virus, how easy for the farmers or researchers. The effort taken for almost 10 to 12 years, if it is not going for any partners, imagine the investment time is gone and the benefit is also affected. That technology is a very game changer. And the second, when we do that one, we also engage with KFIS, KFIS. They also test our entries. And once it becomes the important element, then we confirm there is no virus, make sure that it is again grown in Zimbabwe, then we make sure that it is not grown to any other places. And this particular piece of producing disease-free seeds, diagnostic and surveillance, we trained more than 5,000 to 8,000 partners. Who are those partners? National plant protection organizations and national research organizations, private seed companies, and seed producers. So this is the mechanism, because capacity building is central to our strategy. If people are not aware, not practicing, whatever we do research, it has no relevance.
That is true.
Yeah?
That is true. Before we go on, let's break down what you have just spoke about.
Yeah.
Developing resistant varieties. From a scientific perspective, how long does it take, that process?
Okay.
And especially on these MLN disease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very important question. You put a very important question in the room. Developing a resistant variety, first we need a resistance source. Any native resistance source, we should have a natural resistance for that one. When I joined CIMMYT, at that time, there was no resistance source. Almost all 80% or 95% is entirely susceptible. So there is a one line is giving the hope of resistance. And we used that line from Kesetsat University in Thailand. It is passing through USDA. That was a very good validations. That is the new journey has begun. And what we did, that is an important question you put in. So people cannot wait until we bring the resistances. They need the food on table today.
Yep.
And what we did, we identified whatever is available on our basket, we identified first 5 hybrids as a tolerant hybrid called as a first generation hybrid. And then the targeted research, focused research for MLN has started. Normally in any disease resistances, which I worked for 31 years in the same field, so it will take almost 7 to 9 years if the streamlined work is in very order. Everything is in order. So in this case, CIMMYT, what we did, we use novel tools and technologies called double haploid technologies and molecular markers. And high precision screening in Naivasha, which is the world-class facility supported by KALRO. We are immensely thankful to KALRO. And then that start has done, and immediately we started identification resistance source, and we developed a focused resistance source and developed a hybrid called second generation hybrids, and which has given 6 to 8 tons, where in comparison there is no yield at all. You have one, I did not have the crop, otherwise you would have appreciated the fully grown matured crops with no yield, and then fully grown. So that is the one which we released around 2018. And within 4 years we developed that one, using this kind of advanced tool. Our journey has not stopped there. We further progressed in gene editing. Yeah. Again, the new journey has started, but that again needs a high, thorough, accurate disease screening steps. That is the base for everything. So then we identified the gene which is responsible for MLN resistance and validated resistances gene. Then our collaborator Carter, they have incorporated that resistance into a elite lines. Today, walk the talk, we can show that those gene edited lines are proven to be very good. Coming back to one step, if you may allow me, that there are many lines in Africa which are very good in the last 4 decades. They are very good. Why? Drought tolerance and low N nitrogen tolerance, which are very good for everything. but they are highly susceptible for MLN.
MLN, yeah.
So that means you need, which is very good, but you need to incorporate that resistance of MLN into those elite lines. And thanks to these novel tools and technologies, we incorporated only MLN resistance. Now, earlier it was susceptible to MLN, but good for every time. Now, this is the new version is all are retained plus MLN resistance. That is called marker-assisted backcrossing program.
Okay.
So that means farmers have the more hopes. That means they can secure the food even though there is a drought, even though there is other things, but they can also secure because of MLN.
Now, you talked about detection and surveillance. I suppose this was in the very early stages once
Yes.
it was detected,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what goes into that, and what were the outcomes of that?
Oh yeah, that is very important. So in diagnostics, especially smart, accurate diagnostics, there are so many methodologies available. In this case, we need a simple, accurate, and economically viable, because all are field-based technologies. Otherwise, people coming to the lab, advanced technologies, it is not viable. Okay. So in that case, what we did that we used immunostrips, which is very simple, and optimized 1 immunostrips per hectare. And then we optimized the protocol. We trained all the partners. I enabled to give the training of more than 400 certified inspectors in the region. And 8,000 people have been trained in the ground. So that simple technology, we made them called as champions. So that in itself, and using the field-based diagnostic technology called ODK tool, we integrated, and this diagnostic is reflected in the MLN web portal. People can see where MLN is there, where is not there. So this particular steps we have been doing last 10 years. So accurately, almost 20,000 diagnostic points in 8 countries, 10 years, and it is a kind of a passport of where MLN is there, where MLN is not there. So if you allow me, there is one more step we took called digital seed tracker.
Okay.
So that is very new in the baby in the board. What is that board? 2 years back, we validated technologies. We worked closely with Kenya Seed. We worked with KFIS. We worked with Calro. And KFIS is now a regulatory body in Kenya. So we introduced this technology. They very happily accepted it. They made a public participation meeting in Baringo, Marigat, all those areas. And then the technology is available now. What it means, you are a farmer. You are producing seed for a company. From the day one, KFIS will give the ID. And that ID is incorporated there with the barcoding system, GPS, artificial intelligence, that will be part of that one. So then automatically I put all the input. I know when the MLN management is practice should start. Everything I put in there. Whether the seed is certified, what are the insecticide I used. And finally, when KFIS make 3-4 inspections, they know where exactly MLN has started, why the seed is being rejected, and why it can be controlled, and what methodology we need to control. That analytics can be done in a single fashion. Last year alone, almost 600 data points we award from all the way from Western Kenya to Southern Kenya. We have the complete imagination, clarity. Yeah.
That is very important. It's a very important point to note that, I mean, technology is actually helping in this fight against MLN. So when you talk about clean seeds, distribution, the distribution channels, and ensuring that farmers are actually getting clean seeds and not just any seed.
Correct.
You know,
very important.
How do you ensure that is happening?
A very important 2 dimension to it, this one. KFIS is a very important player in the entire Africa region to showcase as a leadership. Okay? Although every other NPPs are doing equally good job, but KFIS took the major they put a policy called zero tolerance, because people only understand when the legal framework is properly operating it. So they use that as a major framework to work with all the seed companies. And they have a certified inspector which we help them to understand the skills and knowledge. And what happens when the KFIS inspector goes to every field, they do inspection at every stage, and they guide the people what are the agronomic management practices to be done, which we train so many seed companies, and we through the KFIS and seed companies, they give all those practices. Then if they find one plant that is a zero tolerance, that hectare of seed is completely rejected. Imagine Kenya alone needs 65,000 metric tons of seeds to cater the Kenya requirement. And in that volume, almost half of the seed is being produced, almost near to 38 to 40,000 metric tons being produced in Kenya. Remaining is coming from Zambia. There is a 2 point. 35,000 is coming from Zambia, is a clean seeds guaranteed. But within the Kenya is also equally important. So using this as a critical dimension, and they certify this farmer, this company is completely clean from MLN. If the KFIS doesn't give the acknowledgement that is certified, then they cannot put in the market. I have seen my own experience in one of the company, almost 2,000 metric tons is just rejected and putting into grind.
Yeah.
Imagine that type of seed is going to the field, it becomes more challenging. So now the seed treatment is another game changer. Imagine I have mentioned about seed tracker and a seed treatment. If seed treatment can be used, and we have developed to a half-ton capacity, if resources are available, we can go up to 10 tons capacities. If this MLN affected area is given that facilities through support of donors or other people, and our farmers of Kenya can produce the total requirement of seed within Kenya, which gives the opportunity to enhance the GDP and reduce the transportation cost and enable them to be more sustainable, because food security is a sustainable factor.
Right. That is very important. I would like you to hear your thoughts on the issue of indigenous seeds. I mean, there has been quite the talk, including in the courts, about indigenous seeds. And what is the risk of farmers exchanging seeds when the season begins, in terms of your efforts and the efforts of other scientists in tackling diseases?
Yeah, that is a very sensitive area you touched. This is very important.
Yeah.
It is not called, technically it is not indigenous.
Yeah.
It is self-retained seeds.
Right.
Yeah, meaning that they produce some seeds, they keep it for them, the household consumption. That is the biggest challenge. I traveled all over Africa. Wherever they go, they say certified seeds. But I ask the question, then why is there is a MLN is coming in? Oh, this is just for our kitchen garden, our own farm. That is the biggest challenge. How to address that one is the big question in the room.
Yeah.
So we need to, that's where we call community of practices. We have put a community of practices in entire Africa. This community of practice, why is relevant and what it will do. So all these stakeholders should come together and exchange, these are all the challenges, and develop a solution, practices and policies around to those problems. So now KFIS together with several stakeholders are working how to educate people. It is not, you cannot put the force there. You have to educate them. You have to help them by producing certified seeds. Slowly you can make as a community practices. Help them, enable them and sustain them. That means we are able to make them to grow together. That is the most important. We can't use the force, but we have to help them the value of certified seeds.
Right, empowering the farmers with the knowledge that they need.
Exactly.
Right, another challenge that farmers have always faced, and I ask anyone in the agriculture sector this question, is the issue of extension services.
Yeah.
Because we know that farmers are struggling to get extension services. The ones that are available are private and very expensive, and they would be able to help with combating such problems.
Very much true.
Right, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, this is our biggest mission. Biggest mission. It is not by words. It is, if you ask me, you talk to any people who we are engaged with, how we deliver that community of practice or extension practices. So this is what we say, strengthening diagnostic surveillance, phenotyping, agronomic management is around this community capacity building is the key. And you may add one element to it, youth in agriculture, empowering youth. So now, what we have to make as a proper way of extension services. So we took that leadership. We tried to promote that leadership into every organization leadership. For example, I think I can say more than 50 to 80 trainings I have done personally. It's a very, very intensive one. And then I call them as champions. Through our various projects supported by Gates Foundations and USDA, and then other plant health 1CGR organizations, and we enable them and make a small groups. So then we provided the technical know-how. We gave a lot of backstopping in terms of diagnostic, in terms of disease management, in terms of producing clean free seeds, in terms of growing the right varieties, also developing the resistance varieties. So we made several sectors and we made the champions. And we constantly monitor them so that they are doing the right job. In that case, they are very successful. And 2 days back, you may not believe, in Zambia, around 80 inspectors, Dr. Ken Mesiska, he invited me for a training. I provided the training for around 70 to 80 inspectors. They are going to embrace around 36,000 hectares. 36,000 hectares for what? Seed production. So they don't want a single seed which can be hiding somewhere having MLN. Kenya is also doing the same step. They're always now they're inviting me for next seasons. They want to engage all their staff, various companies, come together, train them, so that it becomes a practice, it becomes a culture. We don't believe in just providing the training material is a training. And it should be a culture of the entire ecosystem. That has been established very well. That's why we are very proud. If any disease comes to Africa, a transboundary threat, the system is very well validated, it is working, they can handle to the point. You may consider one more point here. 2024 in Zambia, El Nino has hit very hard. The food security was in the big challenge in Zambia. What can they do to bring the food on the table to the very poorest of the poor? And they have no choice to bring the grains from Tanzania. Tanzania has a MLN. So now you are battling with the two threat in the room. And it becomes a very... And then we supported them a proper training for all the inspectors to inspect all the grains to make sure not a single grain landing into a trouble of Zambia, which is clean for MLN.
Yeah.
So they could manage more than 300,000 tons of grains bringing from Tanzania to Zambia, make sure that this is completely free of MLN, but they provided the food. This year, they got back to the normal agriculture. So these are all the areas how training has to be happen on the proactively, not reactively.
Right, it has to be proactive.
Yeah.
You say that the Southern African region is MLN free.
Yeah.
How was that achieved?
Yeah, it is very important questions. So first thing is that one thing we should say, the awareness. All the stakeholder awareness is the key. And you should give them a proper training on diagnostics and surveillance constantly. And one important area you need to remember that African countries, many African countries, have a porous transboundary mechanisms. If the borders are not being strengthened enough to diagnose, any seed can come, any grains can come, it will be very challenging. So what we have helped them to strengthen the diagnostics in the borders, ports, testing centers, screening facility, quarantine sites, everything we gave the awareness. We helped them to diagnose on a training basis, on the lab-to-lab training. We went there in the field, how to conduct this training in the field, diagnosis. And the third point, and we also monitor at the regional level. And the most important point, we make sure no seed going from Eastern Africa to Southern Africa having any MLN. Because since they are completely aware the risk of getting MLN, they are putting very, very tight security. They can't take any risk. They are very much aware. So that way, we are able to have a complete flagship of achieving Southern Africa is free from MLN, and Eastern Africa, we reduce the incidence and the spread of MLN. So now we have to live with it, MLN. We can't go away from it. But what we can do, we have to reduce the severity by these practices. And this can be an example for any other diseases, and it can be example for the whole world If Africa can able to handle this kind of major threat, why not other part of Asia, Europe, and America? And Africa has demonstrated coming together with all the partners, with all the technologies, collaborations. I think we achieved the biggest possible areas. Yeah.
That is a good job. Well done to you and all the other partners.
Yeah.
Now, do you suppose there's a time when we'll say that East Africa is MLN free?
I would not say MLN will be going anywhere.
Okay.
You see, there is another challenge is coming in. People see symptoms, only they call it as MLN. Nowadays, the challenge is that due to climate change, there is no symptoms. We are hearing from the people, no symptoms, but seed is positive for MLN. There is a symptoms, but no seeds is working. Yeah. So that means there is a challenging aspect is coming in due to climate change. Second, virus is also not behaving properly if the climate is changing. And through our regular surveillance mechanism, we found almost 20-25% of crop area still with MLN. And it is more. Rwanda is another example. They have been achieving more than 3,000 immunostrips per year. And everybody is doing. Now, people are very much aware that MLN is a risk. But what is this point? As you rightly mentioned, one plant in the country is equal to the same risk of 1,000 plants. It's just a matter of spreading. Now, what we need to do, use of resistant varieties and use of chemical seed treatment called Gaucho Cruiser, which can protect the seed from the viriliferous insects. Means the insect, when it acquires the virus, it becomes viriliferous. And we feed the plants. Even though the insect comes, it will not affect the crop up to 8 weeks. And the second part is that, and third part is that using this chemical seed treatment called, we used remove the virus. If they remove the virus, because you can remove the virus in the whole ecosystem, people have to take this technology very serious and immediately get up to the point all those rejected seeds should be treated and it should be made available to the farmers, not to be part of a grain systems.
Right. Okay, and so when we look at the other agriculture value chains, we know that from a phytosanitary perspective, markets are very stringent, especially in the West.
Yeah.
And a lot of produce has been stopped from entering those markets.
Right.
Sometimes it's diseases, sometimes it's maturity and just early picking of crops.
Yeah.
And so how can a model like this that is tackling MLN be used to tackle other challenges in other agriculture value chains?
Yeah, other agricultural value chains, we are focusing on that one. So especially if you see in mainly in, for example, vegetables, okay? So, and some of the wheat, food crops or vegetables or food. So the most important is the seed or plant material is a source of moving the pathogens. So they have to use this model. Traceability, trackability is the key. And diagnostic is the key. If I bring a seed or a plant material from Yambu, Nyari or Kitale, anywhere, KFIS should know using this seed tracker model. This model will be helping. Immediately I have a barcoding. If I use this one, who produced this? At what stage it has infections? And then, when that is the ingenuity of this technologies, if I give this barcoding information to the point where other countries going, then I can also use their technology similar to it, where who is going to produce that in America, who is producing in Africa, Europe, Asia. So then if that incidents happen like in Corona, I can immediately pick this seed coming from Embu, this seed is coming in Kitale. Like I can backtrack. Then I know this is the risk we are transferring from Embu, or I'm just giving an example, to the another country. Then I can focus on that area, contain it, rather than affecting the whole regional farmers, because they're not at fault. So then you embrace the technology for that region to eliminate the virus. Similarly, for other crops, they have to use digital platform, artificial intelligence, and this kind of eliminating the pathogen in the ecosystem, so that the agriculture become one, not one disease or one crop. So that collectively in the ecosystem it should be robust and sustainable and scalable and economical. Yeah, and it should be trade-free, friendly, so that people get the nutrition, food secured, and their family will be always happy.
Right. A lot of the work that you do requires very big funding, so to say.
Yeah.
And we know that it has been a challenge year in, year out about research funding in Africa.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, and what role do you think government and partners can play to ensure that money and resources are being pumped into research?
It's a very important questions you have touched. The funding is the biggest challenge nowadays, especially funding income when it comes to agriculture research. They feel that it is not a priority areas, but it is a priority areas. If there is no food in the house, what will be the next consequences? We cannot even sleep.
Yeah.
We cannot even think. So all the funding agencies should really think and prioritize what are all the critical roles, like we call biotic stresses, like emerging transboundary threats, pest or fall armyworm or MLN. All this has to be prioritized, number one. And they have to integrate, they have to fund more advanced technologies, futuristic technologies, so that they cannot be simply in isolated manner. It should be regional way. So they have to bring the environment, engaging all the collaborators together. Because I worked with several collaborators in America, other people, they have funding challenges. But in Africa more, there is a limitations. So government has to prioritize. This much money has to go to that priorities. For example, MLN, or aflatoxin, mycotoxin, or ERR. These are all the key areas. So they have to reserve some national funding, and partners also should support, like companies should give some philanthropic funding for this research. Yeah, and donors should change their priorities for these key areas, and not holding that discipline into accountabilities.
Right. There have been declarations that were done, even the Maputo Declaration.
Yeah.
Governments agreed 10% of budgets will go into agriculture. But countries such as ours and others in the region have been perennially missing this target. I think we're at around 3%
You are right.
now.
Yeah.
So what is the challenge? Is it the will that is not there, or are governments just jostling many funding needs, so to say, in the country?
Yeah, I agree that government is really struggling. The several priorities coming into the same directions. So when it comes to the national priority, they always think this is okay. We have achieved some basic food. Then let us move on to that one. But what I say, a food should always keep some base to base priorities. It should not be disturbed. Although you can develop other infrastructures, but this kind of priorities should not be disturbed.
Right. So as we come to a close of the conversation, what would be your closing remarks, especially in terms of tackling MLN, moving forward, and what the farmers need to know?
Yeah, to me, farmers are the first priorities. Farmers are the first priorities. They want a total solution to the agri-systems, whether one disease or multiple disease. They want a variety or hybrid which is completely having all the stress resilient component. And it should be affordable, it should be available, accessible to the farmers. And that way, all the collaborators, partners should come towards that, giving one solution, not a particular variety. Everything should be packaged into solutions.
Yeah.
And for the scientific communities, we should always look for the innovative, futuristic technologies, and engage the youth. And because if you don't engage youth, and future will be not be strong, and youth inclusive of genders, yeah. And also the third component is that government policies should really look into it, because this is the case where policy is very required in terms of handling the transboundary risk, in terms of making sure that funding is there, in making sure that there is a proper linkage between the several stakeholders. That policy is a must. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned the issue of young people being involved.
Yeah.
You are the kind of career that you're in is in the STEM world, so to say. And what would be your advice to young people who want to get into, research, and especially scientific research?
Yeah, this is my always first priority. Encouraging, inspiring youth is the first step. I would say youth, there is a lot of creative mind happening in agricultures. And that will directly translate into a social food securities. So if you do one software, if you do one part, it is just for that mechanic. But if you develop this technology for food, whole community, whole society will be happy. And you have a lot of talent. You can bring the artificial intelligence here. You can bring the modern biotechnologies here. You can bring any blockchain agriculture here. Everything can be integrated in agriculture. And it's only hardship. Don't fear about hardship. Hardship, when you have a technologies, I can say using this phone, I can see where exactly this variety is growing. And there is a technology is already available. A farmer in anywhere in Kenya can say, I need to grow maize in this season. Can I grow? It will automatically synthesize that, okay, in Nari, next 2 months is not going to be a good rain. Can you use the drought tolerance varieties or use these practices? It will translate. That technology is there for you, youth. Please think about this technology, help the poorest of the poor, and money is always coming. If you bring the good proposition to the table, return on investment, money is always there. Don't just look for money, but look for the society benefit.
Using our talent, our
Exactly.
brains to solve the problems of the
and
community.
help other friends in the community so that everybody coming into agriculture.
How about from now the education perspective, having more people in the STEM subjects?
Yeah, that is the biggest concern which I'm seeing. There are some subjects is gradually they're moving away from the mainstream. For example, crop protection, some of the areas, people are not being attracted. And then people have to really focus some of the case studies like this, and enable those youth, look, this is the example which we have. And to me, there is another point. Skill development is not there much. Skill development is an important element. It is not like exam-oriented syllabus. It should be knowledge-oriented. It should be skill-oriented. It should be empowering and connecting them either as startups, and then the youth will automatically come. They need proper guidance and orientation and monitoring. Then I've found so many youth, talented youth in Kenya and Africa, but they need some resources to start up.
Right.
And that is where the donors can think about how this youth can be channelized, harnessing the technologies, providing the benefit to the agriculture. Yeah.
And is CIMIT doing anything in that regard?
Very much. For example, we encourage youth, especially we support several students to do MSc, PhDs. And when they complete, I can tell you, they are very much into the real applications. For example, my PhD student in Ethiopia, Temescan, he has done studies on maize ear rot, aflatoxin.
Okay.
He has completely mapped the whole Ethiopia on what is the aflatoxin ear rot, and collaboration with US universities. Then that is a good example. If he can do, and then immediately using that information to his regular research. And there is a similar example can be created all around Africa and make a network. So there is a good way, and social network can be another areas. It needs to be properly oriented towards this real required areas.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and thank you for the work that you're doing to tackle this disease in Kenya. Asante sana.
Thank you so much for this time. I'm sure it will be a good discussion. Yeah.
Okay, that is Dr. Suresh Lingadahali Mahabaleshwara.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. I am grateful for your time. We have been talking to him. He's a pathologist at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. The Spanish abbreviation for that is CIMIT. And we have been talking about the maize lethal necrosis disease and how scientists, researchers, partners came together to ensure that the maize production in Africa is is still continuing, you know, that we are not losing 100% of our yield to this disease. And as he says, more is still happening. Surveillance is at an all-time high. Data points are all over the 8 countries that the surveillance is ongoing. And of course, we hope that this continues so that we can continue enjoying our ugali and, you know.
Sure, yeah. I think ugali is when I saw ugali and sadza in Southern Africa, I love that food, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So as you continue enjoying your ugali, remember that there are some scientists and researchers who are fighting diseases that could affect the yield of our
At this
crop.
platform, I want to thank all our collaborators, partners, and students, and for their commitment for a stronger and a future and a healthy planet. I really thank everybody who enjoyed this journey, who contributed to this mission.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And that is where we end the conversation this morning on BizCheck. Thank you very much for your valued company and just watching. We hope that you learned something from both our conversations this morning. Asante sana. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. My colleague Sheila Kayaro Yogo is on standby to bring you the latest from the counties on Kurunzi Mashinani. My name is Betty Kiptum. And our interpreter's sign language, the first hour was Lensa Odingo. I can't see the second hour, but thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
It's autumn, the time to harvest the Satsuma Imo crop. Satsuma Imo is a type of sweet potato uniquely developed in Japan. There are around 4,000 varieties of this popular vegetable all over the world. Satsuma Imo are naturally sweet, so we can find them delicious even by just baking them. Because the sweetness is natural, I feel comfortable giving my kids Satsuma Imo. It's very soft and tasty. Baked Satsuma Imo is a popular snack during the cold winter season. An invisible protective coating prevents any invasion. With Satsuma Imo, Japanese growers have developed a sweet potato that's even sweeter. I hope more people around the world will appreciate how tasty and versatile they are. This sweetness makes Satsuma Imo a perfect base for desserts. How about a sandwich of a whole baked Satsuma Imo with fresh cream? Or a Satsuma Imo brulee with sugar added to produce a pleasant fragrance. Baked satsuma imo is great in a parfait with ice cream. Hot baked satsuma imo and cold ice cream are an incredible combination. I'll have this again. People continue to come up with new ways to enjoy this versatile food. Satsuma imo, Japan's sweet potatoes with an intriguing sweetness, are gaining fans worldwide.
I've achieved by winning 2 trophies, one in school and one at home. I'm acting for Gundu. I mean, your own neighbor has followed you up to here.
In today's book, Baraka and the Big Worry Clouds, we meet Baraka, who also gets worried too much and too often.
Rolls Ron Rex really right.
Rex really right.
And today I have a simple recipe for you. So I'll fry my sausages and then I'll garnish them after.
Hold on tightly and nurture it, but allow it to grow.
How do you heal? How do you move on, whether it's in relationships, whether it's with family, with friends?
So when I hear about healing, one, I believe it's all about clarity and stability when you're making your decisions.
Loving is not a feeling. It is an action. It is to give that love that is required. And so that is why I believe you cannot at all. Where's the pair? You can't love that person and you're still healing.
I put my hope in you, for you are the lifter of my head. You say, I put my trust in you.
It's nice to see you.
I think... maybe our angel is not ready for this world yet. That's why we should keep waiting.
Na walisema mapenzi ni kama upepo.
Zameni usi uchawi. Ino kazi ni amoni.
Ni kipi kikusikitishacho kipenzi changu kiki?
Akili mnemba ina mchango gani katika jamii?
Hoja yangu ya kwanza ni mabadiliko ya haraka katika teknolojia yanafanya watu kushindwa kuendeleza akili mnemba.
Akili mnemba inaunda fursa mpya za kazi.
Tutajie kisawe cha neno hili.
Gwena.
Uitwa Ngwena. Makofi mpigie. Mama amepona. Kinyume,
Mama ameugua.
tamthilia ya Bembea ya Maisha ni tamthilia tatizo. Eleza.
Inaeleza jinsi Yona na Sara wanapitia tabu na mwisho wakafanikiwa.
Hujambo mtazamaji, natumai ubuheri wa afya popote pale ulipo. Karibu tena kwa taarifa zetu za Kurunzi Mashinani. Mie wako Sheila Kayaro Yogo na mtangazaji wetu wa lugha ishara akiwa ni Lensa Odingo. Maafisa husika katika eneo bunge la Malava, kaunti ya Kakamega, wanachunguza kiini cha moto ulioteketeza bweni katika shule ya upili ya wavulana ya Shamberere. Mwalimu mkuu wa shule hiyo Laban Sikolia anasema kuwa moto huo ulizuka usiku wakati wanafunzi walipokuwa darasani na kuteketeza mali ya thamani ya shilingi milioni 1.8 ya wanafunzi 78. Mbunge wa eneo hilo David Ndakwa alitembelea shule hiyo na kutoa msaada kwa wanafunzi walioathiriwa.
Wanafunzi walipoteza vitabu, wanafunzi walipoteza hata mattresses mingi na blankets na bed sheets. Hata nyumba iliungua, inataka renovation ifanywe umo ndani.
Walimu wakae kwa shule, watoto wakiwa preps wanafanya rounds, ndio kitu kama hiyo ikitendeka tena wanakuwa na alert.
Na serikali ya kaunti ya Pokot Magharibi imeimarisha kampeni ya uhamasishaji kuhusu ugonjwa wa nasuri ukipenda fistula, ikiwahimiza wakazi kuwawasilisha wanawake walioathirika ili wapate matibabu na upasuaji. Idara ya afya ya kaunti ya Pokot Magharibi inasema wanawake 30 hufanyiwa uchunguzi wa ugonjwa wa nasuri kila mwezi katika kaunti hiyo, huku visa vipya 3,000 vikiripotiwa kila mwaka kote nchini. Ugonjwa wa nasuri husababisha unyanyapaa na upweke wa jamii ambao unaweza kukomeshwa kupitia matibabu na upasuaji. Gavana wa kaunti hiyo Simon Kachapin amesema kuwa kaunti hiyo inajizatiti kupunguza visa hivyo kupitia huduma za upasuaji bila malipo.
Tunajua wanaumia sana wengi mle nyumbani, wanajificha manake ile shame ambayo wako nayo, ile aibu ambayo wako nayo inafanya wajifiche, wasijitokeze. Katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, tukiangalia zile takrimu kila mwaka kati ya kina mama 2,000 na 3,000 wanapatikana na hiyo ugonjwa wa nasuri.
Bado tungali na kina mama wengi ambao wanapata shida ya fistula, na sasa tunafanya mipango mizuri ili tufanye kazi kwa ukaribu na members wa county assembly ili labda tukue na isolated policy ya fistula.
Wako changa wanapata shida kwa sababu hawajakomaa na hawajakuwa watu wazima ambao wamefika umri wa kuwa wazazi. Hao pia wanaathirika kwa sababu bado ni umri mdogo, wanaathirika kwa wakati wanajifungua. Kwamba watu wetu waepukane na mambo haya matatu ambaye nimesema, wajifungue katika mahospitali ili wapate huduma ambaye ni sawa.
Na kampuni ya Base Titanium ambayo ilikuwa ikichimba madini ya titanium katika eneo bunge la Msambweni, kaunti ya Kwale, imerejesha 95% ya ardhi iliyoharibiwa na shughuli za uchimbaji kufuatia kuhitimishwa kwa shughuli za uchimbaji madini mwezi Disemba mwaka 2024. Wasimamizi wa kampuni hiyo wamesema kuwa takriban miti 700 na nyasi ya kiasili imepandwa katika hekta 400 za ardhi. Ardhi hiyo itasalia chini ya usimamizi wa wataalam kabla ya kuanza kutumika upya kuambatana na agizo la serikali. Aidha, bwawa la Mkurumuzi limekabidhiwa kwa serikali ya kaunti ili lisambaze maji kwa jamii, huku miundombinu ya umeme ikiendelea kuhamishwa kwa Wizara ya Kawi.
Right now, all mined out areas are 100% fully planted, which is
not a small achievement. It is really good, and we're really proud of our team that we've gotten here. But we are still supposed to be monitoring, and indeed we will continue monitoring to make sure that the rehabilitation continues to foster well within this environment.
Majuzi hivi kulikuwa na ripoti ambayo iliweza kuletwa na cabinet minister ambayo inaitwa post mining land use report, ambayo iko na adoption ya jinsi vile ambavyo miundo misingi hii itaweza kuachiliwa kwa public ndiposa ikaweze kutumika kwa vyema.
Na mzozo unaotokota kati ya kundi la vijana na wasimamizi wa manispaa ya maji wa Mtwapa kufuatia madai kwamba vijana hao wanahujumiwa na kunyimwa nafasi ya kuelezea malalamishi yao. Vijana hao wamekanusha madai kwamba wanapanga maandamano ya kuchochea wananchi, wakisema haja yao ni kupata fursa ya kuangazia masaibu yao, yakiwemo ukosefu wa ajira na huduma duni zinazotolewa na wasimamizi wa miji wa Mtwapa. Na akijibu madai hayo, mwenyekiti wa bodi ya manispaa hiyo Joseph Chilumo amesema bado wanajiandaa kuanza kutekeleza kikamilifu shughuli kwenye mji huo baada ya kutoa uongozi mapema.
Tunahisi tunadhulumika kwa sababu kama tumesimama, tumejipanga, tukijaribu kutafuta njia ya kuweza kuelewana na wao na bado tunawekewa mipaka, tunajiuliza kwa nini wanaogopa kukutana na sisi.
Kuna tetesi ambazo zinaendelea, mnaandika watu kisirisiri, na hata kuna watu wametolewa upande wa county wakapelekwa wakagurishwa wakaenda upande wa municipal. Je, hiyo ni sawa? Sisi hatuna kazi, lakini unatoa mtu ambaye yuko kwenye kazi umpeleke kwenye kazi nyingine wakati sisi tunaumia.
Mimi na uhakika wanataka waonekane na wanasiasa ndio waweze kutumiwa. Lakini sisi hatufanyi kazi ya siasa katika manispaa, tunafanya kazi ya serikali. Na ndani ya kufanya kazi ya serikali mpaka tufuate hiyo procedure ambayo inatakiwa. Tutaona ni wakati gani kulingana na mgao wa pesa tuliotumiwa, ni watu gani tutawaandika kwa wakati gani. Kazi ziadvertisiwe, watu wa apply.
Kampuni ya Binance imezindua kampeni ya usalama inayolenga kuwakinga wawekezaji wa mtandaoni. Afisa mkuu wa kampuni ya Binance kanda hii, Saruni Maina, amesema kampuni hiyo hutumia mbinu za kisasa za kiusalama kulinda mali na fedha za wawekezaji mtandaoni.
We've equipped our boda riders through the association with helmets today and some reflectors, as well as knowledge. And this knowledge goes beyond their safety on the road. It's also safety of their funds even as they get into the crypto space.
The provision, as you can see, of these satisfied helmets through this campaign is therefore both timely and impactful.
Nchini China, roboti walio na umbo la binadamu wameanza kuchukua nafasi muhimu katika hospitali na viwanda, wakichochea ukuaji wa teknolojia ya hali ya juu na kubadili namna kazi inavyofanywa. Maelezo zaidi, tazama makala ifuatayo ya Ifahamu China.
Roboti wanaofanana na binadamu wanaendelea kupanua matumizi yao katika hospitali na viwanda nchini China, wakichochea ukuaji wa viwanda na sekta ya teknolojia ya hali ya juu. Kwa mujibu wa ofisi ya kitaifa ya takwimu, mwaka uliopita uzalishaji wa viwanda vya teknolojia ya juu umefikia 17.1% ya jumla ya uzalishaji wa makampuni makubwa nchini China. Uzalishaji wa roboti za viwandani umeongezeka kwa 28% ikilinganishwa na mwaka uliotangulia. Katika duka la kwanza la roboti ya 4S jijini Beijing, zaidi ya mifano 35 ya roboti wanaofanana na binadamu inaonyeshwa katika mazingira mfano kama famasia na laini za viwandani.
We have created 6 major application scenarios covering industrial, medical, and household use. Prices for humanoid robots range from tens of thousands to several hundred thousand yuan, and the store now attracts more than 5,000 visitors each month.
Katika kiwanda cha Sani jijini Beijing, roboti wawili wa viwandani wamekuwa wakifanya kazi kwa takriban miezi mitatu, wakishirikiana kupanga, kushika na kuhamisha bolti kwa usahihi wa juu.
The robots use visual recognition to assess the difficulty of grasping each bolt, adjust them into more suitable positions, and then proceed with gripping. Their operational precision can reach 3 to 5 millimeters.
Ingawa kazi hizo ni za rudia, roboti hufanya kazi kwa ufanisi mkubwa, zikichukua nafasi ya kazi nzito za binadamu.
Although it seems simple, such work is monotonous and physically demanding over time. The robots are not yet as flexible as humans, but they eliminate the need for manual labor.
Kampuni ya kutengeneza roboti ya UBTech inasema kwamba mazingira ya viwanda yanahitaji teknolojia inayobadilika haraka.
Factory environments are complex. Our team builds one-to-one simulation platforms after data scanning to continuously optimize performance. We have made the first step toward integrating humanoid robots into industrial production.
Zaidi ya viwanda, roboti wanazidi kutumika katika ukaguzi wa nishati, uokoaji wa dharura na huduma za kibiashara. Kwa mujibu wa makadirio ya CCID, roboti wanaofanana na binadamu duniani wanaweza kufikia vitengo 15,000 mwaka 2025, karibu 10,000 wakitoka China. Mpango wa serikali wa akili bandia pamoja na utengenezaji bidhaa viwandani pia unaharakisha matumizi ya roboti hawa katika uzalishaji wa viwandani.
Nasema wewe ni manzi. Manzi ya pasta ama manzi ya nani hapa?
Shemanzi, Asha kanisani.
Wewe ni muamini wa hiyo kanisa?
Hapana.
Very nice. Hiyo ni ya kwanza, maka tatu walimuheshimiwa.
Nimekwambia uulize maswali.
Nikieleza hii mahakama, mimi hiyo pesa nilikuja nikachukua, nikatoa, nikawa kiondo ilikuwa imejaa. Nikatoa nikaweka kwa mfuko ndio sisimwakike. Nitakuwa naeleza mahakama ulangu.
Sheria ya kanisa pale pakijaa anaruhusiwa kuchukua pesa yote.
Sasa ningewacha simwakike mheshimiwa kusema
ulikuwa unatoa katika mifuko ya tai.
Wewe ni aso wa hiyo kanisa?
Aje hapana, mimi ni Islam.
Very good. Walk out. Usiniletee Kiislamu hapa.
Arda?
Yes.
It's nice to see you.
I think maybe our angel is not ready for this world yet. That's why we should keep waiting.
Na mtazamaji, karibu tena kwa kipindi chetu cha Tamrini. Na katika dunia ambayo inazidi kubadilika kila uchao, mustakabali wa taifa hili uko mikononi mwa vijana wa leo, vijana wenye ndoto, vijana wenye maono na ujasiri wa kuongoza. Hiki ni kipindi kinachochambua changamoto, fursa na nafasi ya vijana katika uongozi wa jamii kwa jumla. Na hivi sasa tunataka tuangazie undani ama ukipenda uketo wa swala hili la viongozi na vijana, na studioni wageni tayari wako hapa, wako ngangari kabisa kuweza kudadavua swala hili. Tunaye Frederick Kaunda ambaye ni naibu mwenyekiti wa baraza la vijana wa chama cha Safina. Pia tunaye Eric Nahurenya ambaye ni wakili, ameazimia kuchukua pia wadhifa wa kisiasa, pamoja na Francis Sakwa ambaye pia ni mchanganuzi wa masuala ya siasa. Karibuni sana KBC.
Asante.
Naam, tukianza nawe Bwana Francis Sakwa, mkiwa mchanganuzi wa masuala ya siasa. Je, tuko wapi wakati kama taifa katika masuala ya vijana na hasa kujumuisha vijana kwenye uongozi wa taifa hili?
Asante sana kwa muda huu wako. Ningependa kusema kwanza, jambo la kwanza kisiasa, kama nchi na kama jamii ya Afrika na Kenya kwa jumla, tuko kwa ile wakati ambao ni wakati ambao haueleweki, kwa sababu vijana na wazee kuna mvutano. Natumai baada ya mwaka moja tutaweza kuwa na mpangilio na tutaweza kuwa na clear plan na clear vision ambayo itaweza kuonesha mwelekeo wa siasa, kwa sababu kwa muda wa miaka miwili kumekuwa na panda shuka na changamoto kadhaa katika sekta hiyo ya vijana kwa mambo ya siasa. So nadhani kwa sasa tuko kwa ile kutoka dilemma. Hatujui kama direction ya vijana ni gani hapo mbele.
Frederick Kaunda, ukiwa kiongozi wa chama cha Safina, nakumbuka kwamba chama hicho kiliweza kuasisiwa na mwanasayansi aliyekuwa anafanya utafiti wa mageuko ya binadamu, ukipenda human evolution, mwenda zake Richard Leakey, pamoja na wakili Paul Mwite, na kwa sasa kinashikiliwa na Jimmy Wanjigi, lakini hatumsikii Wanjigi. Yuko wapi?
Wanjigi yuko na tuko na mkakati ya kuweza kutembea na hii safari ya kutafuta kiti cha urais nchini Kenya, na muhimu sana ni kwanza kusema asante kwa kunimpa mwaliko wa leo. Chama cha Safina imesimama imara kwa mambo ya vijana, kwa sababu vijana ndio viongozi wa kesho, na kwa muda mrefu vijana wameishi kuahidiwa watakuwa viongozi wa kesho, na hii ahadi ikawa deni. Lakini kwa sasa sisi tuko katika hili vita, katika hili safari kwa kuhakikisha vijana ndio wamewekwa kipaumbele katika uongozi wa taifa. Naam, Eric Nahurenya, ukiwa wakili, je, unaona katika katiba kuna mapungufu yapi ambayo yanafungua mianya ya kuwafanya vijana wakose kupata nafasi za uongozi?
Asante, na chukua nafasi hii kwanza nishukuru Sheila na KBC, maana hii ni mara kama ya 8 hivi ama 7.
Kwa hivyo wewe sio mgeni, wewe ni mwenyeji.
Mimi ni mwenyeji, niko nyumbani.
Jihisi nyumbani.
Asante sana. Kwanza kabisa, vijana ni nguzo ya taifa lolote, na haswa hapa nchini Kenya, katika taifa ya Kenya. Niweze kusema ya kwamba kikatiba, ukiangalia kipengele, kuna vipengele viwili ambavyo ni vya maana zaidi, haswa kipengele cha article 53 ambacho kinaweza kuangazia masuala ya the rights of the children. Maana hiyo ndio inaweka msingi ama misingi dhabiti, baadaye ndiposa tupate wale ambao ni watoto wachanga waje wafike ule umri ya ujana. Kuna ile preteen, so lazima kama serikali, ni wajibu wa serikali kwanza kabisa kuhakikisha kwamba kuna mipangilio dhabiti, mipangilio kabambe ambayo itaweza kusaidia kulay a very strong foundation kwa vijana, haswa ambao wale wanaanza masomo, ikiwemo kuanzia shule za chekechea wakisonga hadi shule za upili. Niongezea kwamba pia kuna kipengele cha article 55 ambacho kinaashiria ama kuangazia masuala ya vijana. Haswa ni ile wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba kuna mipango kabambe upande wa kuhusisha vijana katika masuala ambayo yanawahusu. Niongezea kwamba pia ni wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba wakati wa mitandao mama na ICT inapewa kipaumbele katika nyanja tofauti, na labda niseme ya kwamba mbele katika nyanja tofauti, na labda niseme ya kwamba katika taifa la Kenya kuna ile inaitwa youth bulge. So licha ya kwamba ni resource ambayo ni kubwa sana, changamoto ziko chungu nzima kwa upande wa mikakati ambayo imekuwa rolled out kusaidia vijana. Labda vile tunaendelea tutaweza kuguzia 1, 2, 3, lakini kisheria ni wajibu wa serikali. Na tukisema serikali, mara mingi unajua leo hii katika taifa la Kenya tuko na serikali kuu na tuko na serikali za majimbo, zile county government ama devolved government. Wakati tunazungumza wajibu wa serikali ni hizi serikali mbili, serikali ya kuu ambayo ni Rais William Samoei Ruto na serikali za majimbo. Kama mimi nyumbani ni Bungoma. Sasa nikienda kule Bungoma nitaashiria ama kunyoshea kidole upande wa serikali ambayo inaongozwa na gavana Lusaka.
Kwa hivyo serikali, ukienda nyumbani, serikali ya kaunti itaweza, inafai kushughulikia.
Tukiwa hapa Nairobi ni ya Sakaja.
Ni ya Sakaja. Na kwa jumla serikali kuu.
Serikali kuu.
Na Bwana Frederick Kaunda, ukiwa kiongozi wa masuala ya vijana katika chama cha Safina, ametaja kwamba kuna swala la majenzi, vijana wa kizazi cha sasa, ambapo siku za hivi majuzi ama hapo mbeleni waliweza kushuhudia maandamano ya kupinga utendakazi wa serikali. Je, ina maana kwamba vijana wa kizazi kipya almaarufu Gen Z sasa wameweza kuridhika? Manake siku hizi hatu wasikii.
Gen Z hawajaridhika. Ni vyema uelewe katika economy ya nchi ya sasa, kupata chakula, hata kupata ile fedha za kulipa hata nyumba ni ngumu. Na hawa Gen Z ambao walijitokeza katika maandamano ya mwaka uliopita na mwaka ingine iliyopita, ilikuwa kwa sababu ya uchumi. Uchumi ya Kenya haiko mahali panavyofaa. Na Gen Z walijitokeza na wakaonyesha vile wako tayari kuingia kwenye uongozi kwa kupigania maslaha yao. Ukiangalia chama cha Safina kinasimama na kutatua hilo suluhisho la uchumi wa nchi. Na ukiangalia sana Gen Z wengi walisomeshwa na makanisa, wengi wakachangiwa na vijiji kusoma. Wakati walitoka shule ama wakati walipohitimisha chuo kikuu, ilikuwa ngumu sana kwa kupata ajira. Na kama huwezi pata ajira, unaona vile hata kupata pesa ya kujikimu ni ngumu. Sasa hii maneno ya uchumi kwanza tunafaa tujiulize itatatuliwa aje? Na sisi kama chama ya Safina tunasema kwanza, katika vipengele zetu 5 ambazo tunaziita first agenda, ni ya kwanza chuo education itakuwa ya bure, maslaha ya health itakuwa bure, tutaweza kureduce VAT kutoka 16% hadi 5%. Serikali ya Safina itakopa deni domestically, na tena hatutaweza kulipa ODS debt. Hii ODS debt ama kwa kipengele cha deni bandia ni nini? Ni ile deni ambayo ilichukuliwa kwa jina la Wakenya lakini haikufika nchini Kenya per the audit. Na serikali imeishi kulipa hiyo deni, kama mwaka uliopita ilipa 2.3 trillion kwa hiyo ODS debt. Kuweza kulipa tu healthcare the whole year ni 170 billion. Hiyo nao atahitaji hizi vitu za SHA, SHIF. Ni Mkenya wa kawaida atahitaji kwenda hospitalini na ID card yake na natibiwa bure. Na tuweke tu kwa example tumelipa healthcare for a whole year, Mkenya anatibiwa bure. Tutahitaji hospitali mingi kujengwa nchini Kenya. Na hizo ndo ajira zitaweza kujijenga. Madaktari wataajiriwa pale, wana construction wataajiriwa pale. Tukienda kusema education itakuwa bure. Sasa unaona vile wazazi wanalia, wanasema hata kupeleka mtoto shule ni bei ghali. Kununua uniform, sisi enzi zetu tukiwa vijana wadogo uniform ilikuwa bei ya chini sana. Sasa mtoto wa grade 10 uniform yake ni kama hiyo budget yake ni kama mtoto anaingia university, hata imepita. So kitu tunasema ni vijana wanaingia kwa uongozi kwa sababu katika society tunataka kusema hivi ndo haki zetu na hazijakuwa zikisikizwa kwa muda mrefu. Na sisi kama viongozi, mimi kama naibu kiongozi wa vijana katika chama cha Safina, tunasimama katika hili safari. Asante.
Bwana Frederick Kaunda, umesema kwamba tumeongea kuhusu mambo ya Gen Z, lakini nimeona umegusia swala la elimu na tutarejelea pale ambapo nitamuuliza Bwana Eric aweze kudadavua kwa undani mfumo wa mtaala wa elimu wa umilisi. Lakini kwanza tukija kwako Bwana Francis, je, unaona kwamba serikali za kaunti zimewajibika katika kuwapa vijana nafasi za uongozi au vijana au kuwapa zile zabuni angalau waweze kujimarisha kiuchumi?
Jambo la kwanza ningesema lazima tuelewe vitu hivi kwamba serikali za kaunti haziwezi fanya kazi bila serikali kuu. Lazima zifanye pamoja. Ndio kumaana kwa muda wa miaka 2 rais amekuwa akijaribu kuhimiza kwamba serikali za kaunti na serikali kuu lazima zifanye kazi pamoja. So jambo la kwanza tungeweza kuambia, ukiangalia zile serikali miradi zinafanywa serikali kuu wakiongozwa na William Samoei Ruto rais, ni lazima zifanye kazi na serikali za kaunti. Mojawapo ni kazi ya affordable housing. The county government wanapeana land na serikali kuu inaweza kutafuta investor na kuweka pale ndani. So ukiangalia the number of employment, nafasi ambazo zimetengenezwa kazi na program ya housing program, ambayo ikiwapo ni mambo ya housing, unakuja mambo ya market na hostels. So ukiangalia hizo sekta tatu, the number of employment, zile kazi zimepeana kwa kijiji na katika county, na ningependa kupatia viongozi wangu walioko hapa watoke waende any county, watapata lazima kuna mradi ya serikali ambao inaendelea, either ikuwe ni housing ama ikuwe ni hostel ama market ama infrastructure. So hizi zote zinaweza kuhakikisha kwamba vijana ambao wako kwa hizo za county wanaweza kupata kazi. So ningesema serikali inaweza kuweka kwa nafasi kubwa, lakini iko na mikakati ikiwa inapatana na serikali. Lakini pia ukiangalia wakati program ya rais ya Nyota na hizo programu zingine, unapata mingi zao in the partnership, kwa sababu the identification program ya watu inafanywa na area chiefs, MCS na county leadership. So unapata there's a clear connection ya hizo serikali mbili. So ningesema kwamba county government sio zote, lakini kuna zingine ambazo zimeweka. Na mimi napenda sana kupenda example ya Nairobi. Gavana Sakaja Nairobi ndio gavana wa kwanza ameweza kuandika zaidi ya vijana 1500 katika kitu inaitwa Constable na Green Army. Ameweza kuweka vijana wengine wa program ya Dishi na County, na ameweza kupatia vijana katika creative arts pia na kufungua space ya vijana waweze kuonyesha mitandao yao. So utapata kwamba inaweza kuwa ionekane direct, lakini depending na ile county umetoka, na mimi kama mtu nimezaliwa Nairobi hii, nadhani ya kwamba hii county imejaribu sana, lakini sio ni chini ya expectation yetu, lakini nadhani kwamba tukiendelea vyema miaka mingine kiwa na partnership katikati ya serikali kuu na serikali za county tutaweza kusonga mbele.
Bwana Eric, najua kwamba unauelewa wa kina kuhusiana na mfumo wa elimu ya umilisi, na pia tumeona katika runinga na vyombo vya habari mbalimbali kuhusiana na swala la watoto kurejea shuleni, maana kwamba wengine hawana karo na wengine hata matumizi ya binafsi wazazi wao hawezi kukidhi. Na jambo hili pia kumeweza kukuwa na mdahalo na hisia mseto kutoka kwa wananchi kuhusiana na mtaala huo. Wanasema kwamba huu mtaala sio mzuri, heri turejelee ule wa mfumo wa 844. Kwa hivyo unaweza kutuelezea maoni yako ni yapi? Manake kuna baadhi ya Wakenya ambao wanasema kwamba hii hazina ya kitaifa ya ustawi wa maeneo bunge CDF isiweze kukabidhiwa wabunge ama watu binafsi, lakini iweze kuweka iwe kama hazina ya watoto, ndiposa kila mtoto aweze kusoma bila malipo.
Asante sana Sheila. Hizo ni maswali kadha wa kadha lakini nitajikaza ili niweze kuguzia kila sehemu. Lakini kabla pia nizungumze mambo mengine, niguzie hili, maana tunazungumzia swala la uongozi, haswa vijana katika uongozi. Uongozi si tu upande wa kisiasa, pia kuna mambo na social, economic and political spaces. Na pia Sheila, ni vema pia niseme hivi, kule Bungoma watu wanajua kwamba mimi ni mmoja wa wale ambao wanagombea kiti cha seneta 2027 kule Bungoma. Lakini pia nimepata fursa ya, kando na kuwa wakili, nimekuwa policy consultant, especially in policy formulation. Nimepata fursa ya kuzungumza na viongozi wa shule, haswa walimu wakuu wa shule za upili. Unajua pale nyuma tulikuwa tunazungumzia tu ya kwamba mambo na CBC, saa hizi ni competence based curriculum, ikabadilishwa ikakuwa competence based education. Ilikuwa masuala ya shule za chekechea, primary school, lakini kwa leo hii shule kuna zile zinaitwa senior schools. So zile ambazo zilikuwa shule za secondary kuanzia kule pale mbeleni, kuna zile ambazo zilikuwa national ama county schools ni senior schools, na hizo zina admit watoto ambao inaitwa the first cohort ya grade 10 katika zile 3 pathways, nyanja 3. Moja ni ile inaitwa STEM, wale ambao wanaendelea wanaashiria kupasua ile mambo na sayansi, na kuna ile inaitwa social sciences, wale ambao huenda wananuia kuwa mawakili kama mimi, na kuna wale wa arts ama creative arts and sports, wale ambao wangependa kufocus kwa masuala ya talanta, kukuza talanta. Leo hii ukizunguka kwa mashule kadha wa kadha, wakati unafanya admission, mimi pia ni mzazi, nimepata fursa ya kuadmit watoto wengine hata ambao tunasaidia. Unapata unafika shuleni, unapata ule mtoto hata wakati alikuwa anafanya uchaguzi wa ile 3 pathway, akifika pale hatambui, maana hakuja kuwa na ile information, ile public awareness mzuri kwa upande wa wazazi na pia kwa upande wa walimu. Na unajua ni wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba kuna proper preparation. Leo hii zile shule ambazo ni shule za upili zinang'ang'ana kuhakikisha kwamba mfumo mpya wa elimu unastahimili na unastahimili mawimbi ya kutokuwa na proper preparation. Nilikuwa nawasikiza wabunge haswa ambao kwa pale haswa kiranja walio wengi katika bunge, Mheshimiwa Kimani akinyoshea kidole haswa PS wa education, maana kuna mambo mengi ambayo yanakumba shule, mfumo huu wa elimu, mfumo mpya, na ni masuala tata ambayo haijaweza kutatuliwa. So vile tumekaa hapa, serikali kuu ijue ya kwamba ni wajibu wao kuhakikisha kwamba mfumo mpya, na pia bado kuna ile mfumo wa 844, tujue kwamba kuna ile inaitwa transition, kuna kitu inaitwa retooling. Walimu wetu katika shule za upili hawajapata muda bora wa kuwa properly trained, kufanyiwa retooling, na pia bado kuna ile mambo na guesswork na wazazi. Na ujue kwamba tunapozungumza masuala ya uongozi, masuala ya vijana, mimi nilitangulia kwa utangulizi wangu ni kwamba katika kipengele cha article 53 kinapewa wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba masuala ambayo yanahusu watoto wanapewa kipaumbele, na swala na access to education is a constitutional right, na kama inji hatuwezi ipata right, then basi tutakuwa we will waste a whole generation. Pili niseme ya kwamba so mfumo wa CBC bado hauja stabilize. Serikali kuu lazima ihakikisha kwamba, nilisikiza Rais William Ruto akizungumza kwamba ni vema watoto ambao hata hawana chochote waweze kuripoti. Ni sawa, but that is a political statement. Ni wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba hawa watoto hata wanapoenda shuleni, wala ambao hawana karo, ya kwamba karo imepatikana. Nikija upande wa CDF, kuna pesa ya CDF. Unajua CDF, mfumo wa CDF waliubadili kidogo, ndiposa kwa ajili vile tulipata serikali za majimbo. Wakati pale mbeleni kulikuwa ya kwamba pesa ya CDF ingeenda kujenga hata mambo ya mahabara ama mambo ya mahospitali, lakini vile ilichukuliwa na county governments wakabadili. Unajua kisheria CDF is illegal, maana ilifaa ikuwe part of the devolved money. Lakini kazi ya CDF pia inaonekana. Ni ombi langu kama mmoja wa wanasheria katika taifa la Kenya, na pia kama mmoja wa policy consultants katika taifa la Kenya, ya kwamba inawezekana ukichukua hizi pesa za CDF, uchukue hizi pesa za scholarships ambazo zingine zinapeanwa na National Ministry of Education MOE, na upate pia pesa za zingine ambazo zinatoka hizi counties, ziweke pamoja in one kitty ili kukuwe na free access to education. Manake ukiangalia ile article 53 ambayo inazungumza mambo ya watoto, wajibu wa serikali kwa upande wa watoto, na pia wajibu wa serikali kwa upande wa vijana katika article 55, ni wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba access to education is guaranteed. Inawezekana hizi pesa ambazo zinaporwa, zile pesa ambazo zinaibiwa, kama serikali ya William Ruto na serikali za county na viongozi wote, ikiwemo bunge la taifa, ikiwemo Senate, inawezekana kwamba kupitishwe sheria ya kucollapse all these kitties into one, na watoto wa Kenya wapewe access to education ambayo iko qualitative. Na pia nizungumze ya kulikuwa na mabadiliko ya mfumo wa 844 na sasa CBC. Unajua 844 ni binadamu tumekuwa tuna evolve. 844 ilianzishwa kule mbeleni wakati wa 1980 something. Vile tumesoma historia ya mambo na elimu katika taifa la Kenya. Unajua kwamba wakati tulipata taifa la Kenya lilipopata uhuru, pia kulikuwa na mfumo mpya ambao focus yao ilikuwa kutengeneza kupata watu ambao watakuwa na tajriba ya kusaidia serikali kuendesha shughuli za serikali, maana we didn't have proper people who are skilled. Na niseme ya kwamba mfumo huo umeweza kutusaidia kama nchi, imefika mahala fulani, lakini hii ya CBC if it's properly midwifed then it is actually good. Sijui kama kuna labda lile ambalo huenda nimeliacha kando kidogo.
Bwana Eric, usubiri kidogo, tushikilie hapo sasa. Tuje kwake Francis Sakwa. Tumeona katika vyama vya kisiasa unapata kwamba wanawake vijana wanahofia kuigiza guu katika ulingo wa siasa. Hata tukiangalia chaguzi ndogo zilizopita za mwezi Novemba mwaka jana, idadi ya wanawake waliogombea viti ilikuwa hafifu mno, kama kule maeneo ya Kasipul na kadhalika. Hata kuna mmoja alipata kura 26. Je, ni nini kinachofanyika? Kwa nini vijana wanawake wanaogopa kuingia katika siasa?
Hii ni jambo tumekuwa na mazungumzo sana, kwa sababu kama jamii lazima tuanze kuangalia shida gani, kwa sababu kwanza ningeweza kupatia heko chama cha UDA, kwa sababu ukiangalia Kenya Kwanza Coalition last election waliweza produce several governors ambao ni wanawake. Ilikuwa ndio chama ambayo iliweza kuleta viongozi wengi wa kike na vijana katika seneti, bunge na ugavana. Na pia wakaweza kujikaza kwa kuweka mwenyekiti wao akakuwa mwanamke, na wamejaribu sana kwa muda mrefu. Nairobi I think nimeona pia wako na elected leader ambao ni wanawake katika county assembly. Lakini hii ni jambo ambalo kwa sababu ya hii mambo inaitagwa political intolerance. Political intolerance, hiyo mambo ya vurugu imeweza kuzuia, and then pia tumeweka siasa ikakuwa ni mambo ya hela ule ako nayo, na jamii kwa muda mrefu. Unajua wanadada wamekuwa ni wanataka na kizungu marginalized, wamekuwa ni watu ambayo hajakuwa kipewa nafasi katika kazi, katika tenders, katika process ya leadership, so hawana hela na pia hawawezi participate in what we call violent political spaces. Nadhani hiyo nimekuwa changamoto kubwa sana, kwa sababu nilikuwa naweza kuangalia, niliambia marafiki zangu wakati nilikuwa mkutano fulani, nikawaambia kwamba we need to observe this trend, kwa sababu hauwezi fanya election na out of around the karibu 12 by elections hakuna mwanamke mmoja amekuwa hata namba 3. Hata namba 3, hata namba 2, namba 3. Na hata ukiangalia kumekuwa na hizi pia kuna uchaguzi mdogo zimekuja, bado kwa all the major political parties ambao ni ODM na UDA wote wameweza kunominate wanaume kama viongozi wao. So ni changamoto imekuwa ni kubwa sana kama jamii, na kwa sababu sisi bado kama jamii tumewacha kuaccept, we are still not accepting ya kwamba tunaweza ongozwa na wanawake. Na nimeona kumekuwa na excuse ya kuweza kusema kwamba wanatumia jirani wetu Mama Suluhu kama scapegoat, lakini naweza kuambia kwamba sio Suluhu, sio dictator mwanamke peke yake. Pia kumekuwa na Museveni pia ni dictator, tumekuwa na Kagame, so hiyo ikuwe ni mdo. Lakini ningependa kwamba hizi vyama ziweze kupeana what we call spaces kwa wanawake, lakini that can only happen one, ni lazima tuhakikisha kwamba Inspector General wa polisi ameweza kuhakikisha kwamba anapeana adhabu kali, kwa sababu hile tuliona Kasipul, hile tuliona Mbere, hile tuliona Malava hairuhusu wanawake kuparticipate katika political process. So ni lazima serikali iweze kukaza kamba na iweze kumake kwamba kuko na severe penalty. Wakili atakwambia severe penalty ile ya kwamba ukipatikana na makosa unastakiwa, na ikiwezekana pia chama chako kinavunjwa. Nadhani hiyo itamaanisha kwamba wanawake wameweza kuparticipate kwa hii process ya free and fair credible election.
Na Bwana Francis, umezungumzia swala ukasema wanawake wanapaswa kupewa, lakini hapa nchini Kenya tuko katika enzi, hata sio enzi, zilianza kitambo, enzi ya mfumo dume, ambapo patriarchal society, ambapo jamii hii inaangazia sana mtoto wa kiume. Na pia kuna wageni ambao pia wamekuja hapa studioni ukiwaambia mambo ya wanawake wanasema inafaa tufanye, tunafaa kufanya hivi na hivi, lakini hatuoni mambo haya yakitekelezwa. Je, ni nini tunaweza kufanya? Mambo gani ambayo tunafaa kutekeleza ndipo sawa wanawake waweze kupata nafasi? Na pia nikiongezea hilo ni kwamba kuna wale wanasema kwamba kwa nini wanawake wanataka wapewe? Mbona wasipiganie hivi viti?
Tuko na kitu tunataka kizungu, tuko kwa constitutional democracy, ya kwamba sisi ni lazima tu implement katiba yetu, na wakili atakwambia hapa months before, mwaka moja ama miezi 8 nyuma yake, court ya Kenya ile rule ya kwamba parliament ni unconstitutional kwa sababu haija meet threshold ya kuwa na 2/3 ya agenda. So ni lazima tu we can't run from this. Ni lazima tu implement katiba yetu. Tuhakikisha kwamba tumerekebisha katiba yetu, tumehakikisha kwa kila department ya serikali, hata hii media tukuwe na CEO ambao ni wanawake. Tuende kwa kila department tukiweza ku make sure kwamba we implement our constitution fully, na kuhakikisha kwamba hata kuona changu, kwa sababu wanawake wataweza kuinuka katika nyanja, katika positions za administration, kwa sababu ukiangalia hata leo, kwa unajua kupatia example moja ya mambo ya sekta ya usalama, kiongozi ni CS anaitwa Kiptum. Ukiangalia DIG Kanja, ukiangalia deputy Masengeli, ukiangalia mwingine ni wana, so kwa Security Council unapata na wanaume. So hawa wanaume ambao wameketi kwa hiyo meza hawawezi tetea agenda kwa sababu hawaelewi. So ni lazima tuhakikisha kwamba kwanza wameelewa. Lazima kijana kioko system na mwanamke itaweza kusaidia sisi kuweza kudiscuss na kuhakikisha, kwa sababu Masengeli bado nafikiria ni fujo, kwa sababu hao hufanya fujo. So ni lazima tuwe na watu kwa hizo spaces hizo kikombe wameinuka. Na jambo la pili pia ningependa kuhimiza wanawake na viongozi wa kike. Pia lazima tuweze kuinuana. Tuweze kushika wale tumepanda juu kama kina Pasaris na wakina wengine tu, wakina Umanga, tuweze kushika wale wako chini, uweze kuinua na tuambie kwamba siasa iko na changamoto zao, lakini lazima wajitume. Lakini pia sisi wanawake pia tuweze kuleta participate in the process ya democracy, kwa sababu pia sisi tutoke kwa manyumba na we participate in the democratic process ya kushinda uchaguzi na pia kuwa part and parcel of that process.
Naam. Asante sana kwa hilo swala ama kwa huo wasia wako, Frederick Kaunda. Je, chama cha Safina, je, kina nafasi ambazo zimetengewa wanaume, ama mtasema wapambane na hali yao, wajitokeze kimasomaso pia nao waweze kupambana?
Chama cha Safina ni chama cha kipekee. Nataka nikueleze, hata mimi wakati nilipokuwa naikwa katika neki ya chama, mwenyekiti wangu ni mwanamke. Katika neki ya chama utapata mwenyekiti akiwa mwanaume, naibu mwenyekiti ni yani kuna gender balance katika chama. Na nataka tuelewe, si wanawake pekee, kuna PWDs pia tunafaa tuweke kwenye mkakati, na chama cha Safina ni nyumbani ya hao wote. Na ningependa tunaongelea kweli vijana kwa uongozi, na tunafaa tujiulize vijana wanatokeaje ndo watafute viti uongozini. Ukiangalia maneno ilitendeka katika kanisa cha Udhaya, pale kulikuwa na vijana, kulikuwa na watoto na kulikuwa na wazazi. Wazazi hawezi pigana na ile vita yenye ilikuwa pale, hawana ile nguvu ya guns na askari, lakini vijana pale waliangalia kuona ni mamangu, ni babangu, nafaa nisimame nitetee haki zao. Na katika serikali ya nchi ya leo, ili ni mambo haifai kuchukua wiki, haifai kuchukua mwezi, inafai kuchukua hata siku. Rais aseme watu hawa na hawa waweze kushikwa. Ukiangalia hata ile demonstration ya Gen Z, haki ya vijana ambao walikufa bado haijatimizwa. Vijana wanaingia kwa uongozi kwa sababu ya uchumi na haki yao, hata si kitu kingine. Sasa sisi tumesoma na tunajua constitution yetu inatupa haki ya kuingia kanisani, inatupa haki ya kuungana kama vijana tuweze kuongea. Unaona? So uongozi wa vijana ni uongozi ambao inaangalia maslaha ya watoto wetu na watoto wetu wataishi kwa nchi gani. Sasa hivi ukiangalia nchi kwa ujumla, vijana wanateseka. Tuko kwenye studio tunaweza kuwa tunasema plans, projects zote, lakini ukitoka pata nje gate, vijana wanateseka. Wale wanafanya bolt, wale wanafanya kazi zote, kwa sababu kwa kila 100 wanatengeneza 70 bob to 80 shillings inaenda kwa kodi. Na hii kodi tunajiuliza mbona ishuki? Ni kama kuwa na mwanamke nyumbani kila wakati anakuambia niko na deni kwenye duka ya 500. Ukimpea pesa Auoni hata kama majani muongezwa kwa nyumba, auoni hata sukuma, tena kesho yake anakwambia deni muongezeka tu 1,000.
Anakwambia kuna chama cha kulipa.
Anakwambia kuna chama. Hiyo chama haijanunua hata TV, haijanunua hata kuka. Sasa tunajiuliza, hii nyumba itasonga mbele kweli? Na sasa kama sisi vijana tunasema tuko na plan, na katika chama ya Stafina kikiongezwa na party leader Jimmy Wanjigi, akona mfumo bora wa economy yeje inaweza tatua ile maneno. Nimesikia ndugu yangu akisema maneno ya education. Mimi nasema hii mambo ya CDF haifai kukua. Mtoto as long as akona birth certificate ya Kenya, anahitaji kupata masomo ya bure kutoka primary hadi secondary. Ni haki yake. Mambo ya masomo ifai kuwa mambo ya bei ghali ati watu wanafaa wachange mtoto wasome. Ndio inchi kuwe inchi kubwa, lazima watu wakuwe literate, watu wapate masomo bora. Na the only way we can do that, hii pesa inaolipa deni yenye hatuoni inafanya nini nchi, ni 2.3 trillion. Tukitoa 280 billion, 280 bilioni, hiyo itaweza kusuluhisha maneno ya education, si mambo ya CDF nini. Tukitoa 170 itaweza suluhisha maneno ya healthcare. Na juzi tumeona SHA inasema 11 billion imepotea.
Simetoweka.
So wanasema ni hospitali zimeweza kuweka sijui nini, pesa ikapotea. That goes back to the leadership. And the leadership is, kama rais unatumia mfumo gani kuajiri au mawaziri? Katika serikali ya Safina, mawaziri wanafaa ajiriwa from a competency level. Juzi unaona mbunge wa Rangwe Lilian Gogo anasema waziri ya Ugamba mshiki simu na ni waziri wa masomo. Na ni mbunge. Sasa mwananchi wa kawaida ataweza jitetea huku nje kweli?
Atakuwa na tatizo.
Atakuwa na tatizo. Na ndio maana unaona vijana wanaingia kwa uongozi. Na hata mkisema vijana hawajajitokeza, vijana kwa sasa wengi wananasi zile injuries za last year. Wengine wao wameshikwa hadi hawajatoka. Wengine wameitwa magaidi huku nje kwa sababu ya kuvaa vizuri na kutoka kusema haki yangu kwenye constitution ni kutoka protest huku nje kusema serikali fanya hii na hii na hii. Lakini wale goons wenyewe wanaonekana kwa kanisa hawatuchukuliwi hatua. Na mimi nasema kama sisi vijana ambao tuko hapa, ni vyema tusimame na vijana wenzetu na ni vyema tuwape direction ambayo inafaa. Asante.
Asante sana. Naona kwamba tumesalia na dakika 6 peke yake. Kwa hivyo nitampa Bwana Francis dakika 1 aweze kusema lile jambo ambalo ana msukumo nalo. Msije mkasema tuko kwenye site lakini hatujamaliza kutekeleza, ama sijakupa muda wa kusema lile ambalo unasikia una ufinyu lalo unataka kusema.
I think mimi sina la kufinya, lakini ningesema kwamba sisi kama vijana lazima tujue kwamba ile generation atakuwa wazee. Lazima kwanza tuwe na heshima na tuwe na nidhamu. Kwa sababu ukitaka kuongoza lazima ufanye nini? Uongozwe. Kwa sisi kama vijana pia lazima tukubaliane kwamba tuko na wazazi, tuwapatie heshima yao na tukubali ushauri wao. Jambo la pili, pia ni lazima tuache kuwa tunasoma mjadala without fact checking. Na ndugu yangu nimeshangaa kwanza ukiongea mambo hiyo 11 billion, kwa sababu go and check, nikiangalia counter checking yake unapata ya kwamba ni facility hazija comply. Lakini unajua sasa kama si vijana, I think tumewacha kuwa ni watu wa kuenda kuwa watu wa hisia, watu wa emotions. Kama vijana lazima tuwe watu wa fact checking, tuanze kuangalia what are the available opportunity. Stop being sitasema lazy, lakini tuache kuwa watu ambao tumekuwa kwa comfort zetu. Lazima tutoke nje, tujitume na tuanze kuangalia ni which programs are around, kwa sababu hapa nje kuna changamoto enzi zetu sai na mbele. Hata mimi nikiwa mtoto mdogo nilikuwa nalipa sadaka sumni miaka 2 nalipa shilingi 3. Ujue next year nalipa shilingi 500. Ni process. So lazima tuangalie historia na tuangalie hapa, lakini tukiweza for us to succeed in this process, we must practice what we call constitutionalization. Lazima tu implement katiba yetu. Na sisi vijana, we must be part and parcel of the process of constitutional reforms.
Asante. Na tukija kwako Frederick, nakupa dakika 1 pekee yake, alafu tutaenda kwa wakili tuweze kukamilisha kipindi.
Naam. Asante sana. Yangu ni kuambia vijana wenzangu, tukiwa pamoja tuna nguvu. Ni kweli amesema nidhamu, lakini hakuna wakati utapata nidhamu kama umesomeshwa hauna kazi na hauna hata ile pesa kidogo ya kukula. Cha muhimu cha kusoma ilikuwa nini? Sisi kama vijana tunasema, hata hii maneno yamesema ya SHA, 11 bilioni ingepotea kama maslahi ya matibabu ingekuwa bure. Unanipata? Sisi kama vijana ni vyema niambie vijana wenzangu tuweze kuingia katika safari ya kuingia kwenye uongozi, kwenye viti za MCA, MP. Naona ndugu yangu anataka senator na tutamshikilia because yeye ni kijana mwenzetu. Na wasiogope, hii kiti ni ya mtu yote mwenye ana akili na mwenye akona, yani siasa ni mambo unaingia kwa mambo ya watu, sio mambo yako kibinafsi, sio mambo ya kushinda. Viongozi wengi unaona wanaingia siasa kushinda. Siasa ni maslahi ya watu. Yeye anajua vile watu wa Bungoma wako, wanahitaji nini pale Bungoma, na sisi kama vijana tuweze kusaidia wazazi wetu kwa kutengeneza ili inchi iwe inchi bora. Na sisi kama chama ya Safina tunakaribisha kila Mkenya, hata wewe mwenzangu, karibu kwenye chama ambalo litakomboa inchi. Asanteni sana.
Lakini naona heri nizingatie tu kwa muktadha huu wa wanahabari, manake siasa zina mambo. Na wakili, kuna lile swali ulikuwa unazungumzia la elimu. Nitakupa sekunde 30 peke yake, alafu kama una jambo la msukumo uweze kumaliza, manake naona mwelekezi anaweza kuja kuninyanyua kwa hiki kiti, aniambie ondokeni.
Asante. Niombe tu ya kwamba serikali kuu ihakikisha kwamba mfumo mpya wa masomo umepewa kipaumbele ili watoto wetu ambao wengi wao ni vijana Gen Zs wapate masomo ambayo ni kamilifu na ni yale ambayo masomo yatawasaidia kujikimu kimaisha pale mbeleni. Pili, niongeza nisema, nilimsikiza ndugu yangu, nafikiri anaashiria upande wa serikali sana, anaegemea upande wa serikali sana. Kuna NYC. Mimi ni mmoja ambao walipigiwa kura wakati wa National Youth Council, wakati kulikuwa na National Youth Council. Kumekuwa na tetezi mingi na zile ile changanuzi wa kuhakikisha kwamba vijana katika nchi ya Kenya. Maana we have the law, we have the relevant policies. Hata hiyo mradi wa Nyota, ukisema chief ama account government ama nani washughulike, ni vema masuala ya vijana wapewe kipaumbele, wajihusishe katika uongozi wao wa National Youth Council. Pili, kuna zile short term na long term programs. Short term kama hii mambo na housing, ukienda in every county maybe wanajenga in a specific constituency, si kila kijana ambaye anapewa nafasi. Na pia kazi nyingi ni ile ya manual work. Tungependa kukuwa na ile inaitwa skills development exchange program. Wale ambao wamechukua hizi contracts pia leo hii kama vijana wamekuwa engaged. Kwa mfano Kenya hii, katika taifa la Kenya kuna vijana wengi, kuna tertiary institutions, kuna graduations every year, kuna universities, ni wengi in every sector. Without proper planning, ukisema kwamba tumecreate kazi na kazi nyingi ni manual, what about those who are skilled? Nikienda kumalizia, ni wajibu wa serikali, nitarudia tena, wajibu wa serikali kuhakikisha kwamba kuna industrialization, especially by the national government. Na zile county governments, serikali za majimbo zikuwe na zile, zianzishe ile inaitwa cottage industries. Kulikuwa na former governor wa Makueni alianzisha zile cottage industries hapa na pale, kuna mambo na processing ya juice and all that. Lazima serikali za counties na serikali kuu zihakikisha kwamba kuna industrialization, because that is the only way tunaweza saidia hawa vijana wapate ajira. Na pia nafikiri itakuwa in the long term. So niombe ya kwamba upande wa vyama haswa kumekuwa na kukandamiza haswa wa kike, akina dada na akina mama kuwania viti za kisiasa. Mimi ukiniuliza kama wakili, na pia nimepata nafasi ya hata kusimamia elections in some of the political parties in this country. Party reforms, political reforms lazima yaanze katika chama. Ikuwe ni policy ya chama na sheria ya chama ya kwamba iwapo tuko na 100 candidates ambao wanaenda kusimama, asilimia kama ni 30 ama 40 lazima zile party tickets zipewe akina mama waende kung'ang'ana. Na pia akina mama pia wajitokeze. Kama kule kwetu Bungoma unapata ile kiti ambayo ninaona tu akina mama wanang'ang'ania, ile kiti ya women rep. So mimi ningeomba ya kwamba utendakazi wa serikali kuu ya Mheshimiwa William Ruto haswa upande wa vijana, kuna mambo mengi ambayo ni lazima ipewe kipaumbele ili vijana waweze kuridhika. bure wataona ya kwamba utendakazi wa serikali ya William iko chini kidogo kulingana na yale promises ambayo ilikuwa imepeanwa wakati wa kampeni za uchaguzi wa 2022.
Asante sana. Nashukuru. Karibuni. Wao wanasema mgeni njoo mwenyeji apone. Na wengine wakasema mgeni kumpokea kumbe ni kujitongea, lakini sisi tunasema mgeni kumpokea ni kujitengea uelewa, kujitengea maarifa na kadhalika. Nashukuru sana, manake nyinyi vijana barubaru na pia mmeweza pia kupata wosia wa mchanganuzi wa masuala ya kisiasa, manake yuko katika nafasi nzuri ya kuweza kupiga darubini na kuweza kujua mambo yanastahili kukua hivi na hivi. Na kwako wewe mtazamaji ambaye umekuwa ukitazama kipindi hiki, tumekuwa tukizungumzia hayo maswala. Sasa ni wajibu wako wewe kuamua, na wanawake msilaze damu, msiwe na hofu, manake kuna fursa chungu nzima. Na kwa hivyo wewe ambaye unaungana nasi kwa sasa, tumekamilisha, unaweza kwenda tu kwa mtandao wa YouTube uweze kubofya vile vitufe vya simu yako, andike tu KBC Channel 1 Tamrini ili uweze kufuatilia haya makala, usiweze kusazwa kwa yale ambayo tumeweza kusema. Na mtakomea hapo kwa sasa. Wakwetu wananiita Shila Kayaro Yogo. Tutaungana nawe mwendo wa saa 10 kamili kwa awamu ya pili ya taarifa zetu za Kurunzi Mashinani, na kutakia mchana mwema. Kwa heri.
Ona jamani, kwa Frida huko 2020.
How do you heal? How do you move on, whether it's in relationships, whether it's with family, with friends, or when I